Chapter 1203. Many apex experts in Realm Heart Great Land were using various methods to observe the confrontation between Undying Underworld Emperor and Heaven's Will Taoist. At this moment, the expression of Heaven's Will Taoist turned ugly. Undying Underworld Emperor sneered in delight. It seems this Undying Underworld Emperor has discovered the true identity of Heaven's Will Taoist. Hurry up and publicize it. Hurry up and publicize it. It seems they are communicating via voice transmission. This Undying Underworld Emperor is not going to publicize it. Why would Undying Underworld Emperor publicize it? The moment he does so, Heaven's Will Taoist will become even crazier. He would not leave any leeway and destroy that enormous array. Without the control of that vast array, how could he control the souls of sentient beings in 15 nations under the law suppression of Realm Heart Great Land? I've waited for far too long just to know the identity of this Heaven's Will Taoist. This Undying Underworld Emperor actually chose not to publicize it. Various parties were paying attention to it. The devils were all anxiously looking forward to it. Some were cold and aloof. They were purely curious and wanted to know the identity of Heaven's Will Taoist. Of course, there were many fanatical worshippers of Heaven's Will Taoist. Some were experts who rose from saving sentient beings, and some purely worshipped Heaven's Will Taoist because of his actions. This batch of experts did not wish for the identity of Heaven's Will Taoist to be revealed. This was a flag that suppressed many devils. It must not fall. Grand Disciple? Dongbo Shuang transmitted over. Teacher, is this Undying Underworld Emperor the Grand Teacher? He had never heard of the relationship between Southern Cloud King and Undying Underworld Emperor. He has truly discovered your identity? AI, Snow Eagle, this Undying Underworld Emperor has become my teacher. That is something that happened after you took me as your teacher. In the past, for the sake of obtaining the Twin Realm Blade, I was forced to swear an oath to take the original owner of the Twin Realm Blade, Undying Underworld Emperor, as my teacher. Southern Cloud King transmitted over. I originally thought he had died. Who would have thought that he has returned after so many years? Shuang, I advise you to bear with it. He has already discovered your identity, so there is no need for you to continue resisting. This Undying Underworld Emperor is a madman. That time, he represented death precisely because he is used to killing. If you were to become enemies with him, he will definitely not let you off. Dongbo Shuang was enlightened. Speaking of which, his teacher, Southern Cloud King, was quite pitiful. He was bound by an oath. Hurry up and retreat. Undying Underworld Emperor looked at Dongbo Shuang. He chuckled and transmitted back, you are my grand disciple. Don't go against your teacher. I have always been free to choose a master. Dongbo Shuang sent a voice transmission. Ming Di, I advise you to give up. Now that you've retrieved the countless array disks used to set up the array, your losses will be minimized. Otherwise, once I make a move, your losses will be even greater. The expression of Undying Underworld Emperor sunk. Yingshan Snow Eagle? Do you really want to be my enemy? If you don't slaughter all living beings, I naturally won't become your enemy. Underworld Emperor, you have slaughtered so viciously for so long, yet you could not become a chaotic origin life form. Don't you want to think about it? Perhaps this path of yours is wrong? Dongbo Shuang transmitted, when you reach the pinnacle of your path and can no longer break through, you might be able to find another world. If you give up on slaughtering and give up on your past thoughts, you might be able to have a new comprehension. It might even be possible for you to become a chaotic origin life form. He could not move on a single path. Why not try it the other way? I've tried it a long time ago. It's useless. I don't need you to guide me on matters related to cultivation. The expression of Undying Underworld Emperor sunk. If you leave now, I'll still treat you as my grand disciple. In the future, if you need my help, I can still help you. But if you insist on obstructing me, then don't blame me for being heartless. I'll wipe out your entire Yingshan clan and the Southern Cloud Nation. The Southern Cloud Nation will also pay a price because of you. Undying Underworld Emperor was merely saying it. He would naturally not hesitate to wipe out the Yingshan clan. But to wipe out the Southern Cloud Nation? A single Southern Cloud nation was close to 15 Tier 3 nations. Furthermore, Southern Cloud King would turn mad. A Southern Cloud King who had many avatars would not be any weaker than Dongbu Shui-ing. As he threatened and persuaded, Undying Underworld Emperor transmitted to Southern Cloud King at the same time, "Hurry up and persuade this disciple of yours. Don't let him continue being so foolish. If he spoils my matter, not only his Ying Shan clan, even your Southern Cloud Nation would not have a good ending." "What, teacher, your meaning is that Heavens Will Daoist is Ying Shan's Snow Eagle? You actually do not know? Such a secret must be kept completely confidential. It will not be revealed to a second person." "I indeed do not know." Southern Cloud King transmitted back. Undying Underworld Emperor felt that this matter should be kept absolutely confidential. "That disciple of yours, Snow Eagle, is Heavens Will Daoist. Currently he wants to obstruct me. Hurry up and persuade him not to spoil my matter." "Yes, I'll do so," Southern Cloud King replied. Dongbu Shui-ing stood in midair. His expression kept changing. He stared at Undying Underworld Emperor and transmitted back. "Underworld Emperor, it is useless even if you find anyone to persuade me. You should know that I have reincarnated into this world. In the past, I even disdained to take Ancestor Fan as my teacher. I would rather take Southern Cloud King as my teacher. Precisely because taking Southern Cloud King as my teacher gives me more freedom. I do not care about the scriptures and treasures of Southern Cloud. Do you think he can persuade me?" The expression of Undying Underworld Emperor turned uglier at that moment. Mad, this was mad. This Snow Eagle had reincarnated into this world. He did not care about Southern Cloud King and might even have limited feelings for the Ying Shan clan. "It's useless. I have been persuading him previously. Even though I have accepted him as my disciple, I have not taught him anything at all. Currently, he is stronger than me, and I can neither restrict nor persuade him." Southern Cloud King anxiously transmitted back. "What should I do, teacher? What should I do now?" "You trash." Undying Underworld Emperor was incomparably furious. Usually, he would still give face to Southern Cloud King. But at this moment he was truly turning mad. "I am at my wit's end, teacher." Southern Cloud King anxiously transmitted back. He was deliberately drawing a line. This was to prevent Undying Underworld Emperor from affecting the entire Southern Cloud Nation when he became mad. This was something agreed upon between Dongbu Shui-ing and Southern Cloud King. "Underworld Emperor, stop delaying for time. Are you going to retreat or not?" Dongbu Shui-ing roared out. "Retreat? How can I retreat? I have ignited the final realm resentment spirit and constructed an array for the sake of this sacrificial ritual. How can I retreat?" Undying Underworld Emperor stared at Dongbu Shui-ing. He roared back, "The moment I retreat, the final realm resentment spirit will be wasted. The sacrificial ritual will fail and not produce any spirituality. The vitality of this corpse will gradually dissipate, returning to death. I have paid the devouring realm spiritual liquid and many other treasures, and all of them will be wasted. For the sake of this sacrificial ritual, everything will be wasted. How can I retreat?" He had paid too much. The moment he failed this time, only the corpse of the chaotic origin life form would remain intact. All other treasures would be wasted. He did not know how long he would have to wait before he could gather more treasures for another sacrificial ritual. Furthermore, with this madman, Snow Eagle, the sacrificial ritual would similarly be foiled. "Ying Shan Snow Eagle, you can walk on your path. I'll walk on mine. Don't force me." Golden flames were burning on the surface of Undying Underworld Emperor's body. "I don't wish to force you. It is you who has forced many sentient beings to a dead end." Shui-ing pointed at the floating souls around him. Those souls were also staring at him in anticipation. "You want to walk your own path, yet you have caused the extermination of countless souls. This is the path of an evil devil, and you should be exterminated. Since you aren't taking the initiative to retreat, then I can only act." This was the first time Dongbu Shui-ing roared out. "You dare!" Undying Underworld Emperor roared. His body was like endless darkness. His aura engulfed the world. Both his palms were covered in dazzling golden flames that directly enveloped over. At this moment, the surroundings seemed to have fallen into a dark death world. Within this death world, there was a terrifying golden flame that caused everything to return to death. So frightening. What a frightening energy. Dongwu Ying could sense that this undying underworld emperor was clearly stronger by an entire level as compared to eternal night primogenite. This time, a maelstrom appeared on the surface of Dongwu Ying's body. It tore apart another pitch-black hole. This was the defensive escaping technique within Dongwu Ying's Feisue combat technique, myriad realms movement technique. But this time he failed. Under the envelopment of the golden flame and the suppression from the dark world, the maelstrom on the surface of Dongwu Ying's body completely collapsed. His body could not charge out at all. Instead, he suffered from the invasion of the endless energy, causing his body to be injured. Even though he struggled and resisted, he merely resisted for 2 moves before his body was incinerated into nothingness. Nevertheless, it was useless. Dongwu Ying did not dare to take the risk when facing undying underworld emperor. He did not even bring along the void fire lotus flower, much less the chaotic origin weapon Azure River Spear. He merely arranged for a powerful avatar. Without the aid of secret treasures, this avatar only had the strength of a final realm expert. In some aspects of survival and escaping, it was still an entire level weaker than true final realm experts. Only when Undying Underworld Emperor became serious did he kill this avatar. The expression of Undying Underworld Emperor changed. How could he kill a final realm expert so easily? Furthermore, he did not leave behind any secret treasures? South. At this moment, many white-robed males appeared within the region of the 15 nations. In an instant, more than 100 avatars appeared in different locations. Undying Underworld Emperor was incomparably startled. He transmitted anxiously, Yingshan Snow Eagle, as long as you don't spoil my plans, everything can be discussed. As long as you don't sacrifice anything, everything can be discussed. The 100 avatars replied in unison. It is you who did not give me a path to walk. Undying Underworld Emperor turned mad. Dongwu Ying had more than 100 avatars. Some were strong and some were weak. The stronger ones had the strength of a final realm expert. Under their eruption, the void was torn apart. Some of the enormous array bases that were laid down were shattered. Almost instantaneously, more than 10 key areas of the array were destroyed. At that moment, the enormous black array that originally enveloped the sky above the 15 nations trembled. As Dongwu Ying destroyed more and more cores, that enormous black array finally dissipated. The sky above the 15 nations finally regained its normal color. The dimly lit sky was as beautiful and quiet as usual. And the countless flying souls in the 15 nations had broken free from that restriction. They regained their freedom. Return. One by one, the souls followed the feeling of their physical bodies and quickly flew back to their physical bodies. No, Undying Underworld Emperor was doing his best to stop Dongwu Ying from destroying the array. But it was too late. Dongwu Ying had too many avatars. Yingshan Snow Eagle. Undying Underworld Emperor roared furiously. This roar echoed across 1 trillion kilometers. It reverberated across 1 trillion kilometers, startling the entire Realm Heart Great Land. At this moment, the apex experts in Realm Heart Great Land understood that Heavens Will Daoist was Monarch Feisue from the Southern Cloud Nation, Yingshan Snow Eagle. Chapter 1204. A gray-robed young man stood by the side of his teacher. He was also looking at the floating heaven observation mirror. On the heaven observation mirror, Undying Underworld Emperor let out a roar of Yingshan Snow Eagle, causing the expression of this gray-robed young man to change. My benefactor, my great benefactor, is actually Monarch Feisue? The gray-robed young man felt his heart trembling. He was worried for his benefactor, Snow Eagle. At the same time, he was infuriated by the madness of Undying Underworld Emperor. Is there nobody in the vast Realm Heart Great Land who could stop a huge devil? Unless it is normal for a devil to wreak havoc? Those who stop the devil would instead suffer? The gray-robed young man clenched his fists. His eyes were turning red. His loved ones, his children, all of his loved ones and clansmen were saved by Heaven's Will Taoist. This was merely one of the unremarkable cities that Heaven's Will Taoist saved over the course of several 100 billion years. This matter was as natural as breathing to Heaven's Will Taoist. He had saved too many sentient beings. Over the long period, many sentient beings he saved had cultivated successfully. Quite a few had even reached the primal chaos realm. Disciple. His teacher glanced at the gray-robed young man and said, I know that your entire clan has been saved by Heaven's Will Taoist. But Undying Underworld Emperor is too powerful. It isn't appropriate for our myriad realms ancient nation to fall out with him. I understand. The gray-robed young man gritted his teeth. He hated. If only he was strong enough to fight alongside his benefactor, how good would that be? But now, he was just a tiny primal chaos expert. He did not even have the strength to rush over. Undying Underworld Emperor could likely kill him with a single gaze. Benefactor. So the true identity of Benefactor is Monarch Feishue? A pair of father and son were within the residence. There was a ripple in front of them. The ripple also projected the scene far away. Benefactor has done a great favor to us father and son. Because he saved us, I have the chance to become a cosmos god. What a pity that I can't help Benefactor at all. Many cultivators who had been saved by Dongbu Shui Ying were extremely worried when they heard the news. There were also countless cultivators. They were weak and didn't know that the identity of their benefactor, Heaven's Will Taoist, had been exposed. They were still living ordinary lives and only felt gratitude towards their benefactor. There is only one Heaven's Will Taoist that appeared in the realm Heart Great Land over the long years. Now this flag was going to fall? A cosmos god seated cross-legged in the meditation room could hardly hide his anger. I was afraid that there would be a day when the Heaven's Will Taoist appeared out of nowhere. I was afraid that his identity would be exposed. Previously, Undying Underworld Emperor had threatened Monarch Feishue, yet Monarch Feishue did not care about exposing his identity. He still chose to save the beings from 15 nations. Since he dares to do this, does he have something to rely on? You have something to rely on? What is it? Even the Summer Wind Ancient Nation and Myriad Realms Ancient Nation aren't willing to tangle with this madman, Undying Underworld Emperor. What backing does Monarch Feishue have? Even if he survives, the loved ones and clansmen he cares about would suffer a calamity. Many cultivators were sighing. The majority of cultivators had people they cared about. Either their loved ones or their good friends, or even their clansmen. There were very few who cared about themselves without caring about others in the world. For instance, Sacred Master came from the Destruction Devil race, and Undying Underworld Emperor cultivated the Tao of Death. Both of their hearts were extreme to the extreme. As long as one had a slightly normal heart, they would not be willing to be alone. There were those who were concerned and worried. There were also those who wished for this Heaven's Will Taoist to die. Various devil organizations were cheering and looking forward to what would happen next. If he angered Undying Underworld Emperor, his clansmen would most likely die. Even he himself would be killed by Undying Underworld Emperor the moment he appeared. All his avatars could only live on without daring to show themselves. Who knows? Undying Underworld Emperor might have a way to kill him. After all, Undying Underworld Emperor could see through his identity and take out a chaotic origin lifeform corpse. Undying Underworld Emperor might have some techniques that transcend our imagination. I've said it before. Nobody can suppress us all the time. That foolish Heaven's Will Taoist actually provoked Undying Underworld Emperor. He is simply courting death. Let's see how he ends up. Many devils were looking forward to it. Many parties were watching. And Undying Underworld Emperor had indeed turned mad. He waved his hand and kept that chaotic origin lifeform corpse before unleashing a frenzied attack. With a flash, he traversed across a great distance and charged at one of Dongbu Shui Ying's avatars. Die for me. Undying Underworld Emperor's enormous palms seemed to contain an endless world of darkness. When it slapped out, the other party could not evade at all. The power of this palm was even more terrifying than when Eternal Night Primogenitor attacked with all his might. He even had a misconception of falling into the chaotic origin dimension. The entire world of darkness and death was killing him. Dongwu Shui-ing sent out more than 100 avatars to destroy the array. There were strong and weak avatars, and only a few had the strength of a final realm expert. This avatar merely had the strength of a level 2 cosmos god. He was instantly destroyed. Die for me. Go and die. Undying Underworld Emperor stood there. His face was covered in a layer of frost. Both of his palms were able to traverse across a great distance and across the distance of several nations before slapping out on an avatar. His palms slapped out, causing many avatars to dissipate. There was also a slightly stronger avatar that withstood 2 palms before dying. After Undying Underworld Emperor killed more than 30 avatars within a short period, the other avatars of Dongwu Shui-ing had already fled. Actually, if Undying Underworld Emperor chose to flee, he would only be able to kill 2 to 3 avatars. The reason why he could kill so many was because Dongwu Shui-ing wanted to make use of this opportunity to see how strong Undying Underworld Emperor was. Flee? Do you think you can escape? Undying Underworld Emperor had a savage expression. The figure of Undying Underworld Emperor disappeared. When he appeared again, he had already arrived above the enormous Feishue city. Feishue city was vast. It was currently the second biggest city in the southern Cloud Nation. There were many people living there. The population of a single city far exceeded that of a Tier 3 nation. Yingshan Snow Eagle. The roar of Undying Underworld Emperor reverberated across the world. It reverberated across the entire Feishue city. Nonetheless, the arrays of Feishue city had long been activated. A faint light enveloped the entire city, isolating the transmission of his voice. After all, given the techniques of Undying Underworld Emperor, just his voice was sufficient to cause the deaths of many weaker cultivators. Nobody can save you. Also, the entire Feishue city will be buried with you. Undying Underworld Emperor roared. Even though he was furious, he was ultimately a chaotic origin life form. After experiencing many setbacks, he could still maintain his rationality. Even though he said that he was formidable, in reality he did not dare to slaughter too many. Because if he slaughtered too many, what if he wanted to sacrifice more in the future? What should he do? If he slaughtered twice consecutively, the moment Yuan became furious, the consequences would be frightening. If Yuan wanted to kill him, he could do so with a flip of his hand. Hence, even if Undying Underworld Emperor wanted to take revenge, destroying a single Feishue city was already his limit. Because the population of Feishue city far exceeded that of ordinary Tier 3 nations. Previously, Undying Underworld Emperor had the confidence of bringing that Undying Walker into the Broken Teeth Mountain range after the sacrificial ceremony. There was no need for him to return. That was why he dared to sacrifice close to 15 nations. But now that the sacrificial ceremony had failed, he had to stay in the Realm Heart Great Land for a long period to continue his plan. Hence, he had to take it easy when he slaughtered. Underworld Emperor, it is fine if you want to deal against Monarch Feishue. But the civilians in Feishue city are innocent. Please let them off. A figure appeared. He was none other than Paragon Master Bewitching Sword. Paragon Master Bewitching Sword? Paragon Master Bewitching Sword from Summer Wind Ancient Nation actually appeared? He wants to obstruct Undying Underworld Emperor? Various parties were startled as they watched this scene. Sword Master. And Dongwu Shui-ing, who was already above Feishue city, was slightly startled. He transmitted, Sword Master, there is no need for you to wade into these muddy waters. Undying Underworld Emperor is a madman. Paragon Master Bewitching Sword remained standing opposite Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor gave a savage grin. Humph? Paragon Master Bewitching Sword? Why, is your Summer Wind Ancient Nation planning to interfere in this matter? Even though he was furious, he was not in a rush to act. Because Paragon Master Bewitching Sword was not an ordinary Final Realm expert. He cultivated for a short period and was the only Final Realm expert after the 3 unparalleled existences in Summerwind Ancient Nation. Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, and Emperor Tsong would definitely protect this Paragon Master Bewitching Sword with their lives. It isn't my Summerwind Ancient Nation that wants to interfere in this matter. Instead, I am here personally to persuade you. Sword Master said. Hurry up and scram. I don't have time to waste with you. A cold light flashed in the eyes of Undying Underworld Emperor. His right hand covered the sky. His palm contained an endless world of darkness that slapped over. Sword Master also unsheathed his sword. At the moment when the sword light was unsheathed, the surrounding region spanning 1 trillion kilometers had turned into a world of sword light. Its power was so strong that it was even stronger by an entire level as compared to when Sword Master was in the origin world Primal Chaos Void. After all, Emperor Summer, Emperor Tsong, and Ancestor Fan treated Sword Master with great importance. They were doing their best to help him. The treasure Sword Master obtained was much better than the Void Fire Lotus Flower. It was the strongest secret treasure in the Tao of Destruction that the Summerwind Ancient Nation collected. It had transformed into the shape of a sword. Given the supreme secret importation technique of Sword Master, with this secret treasure in hand, he was naturally stronger than when he was in his hometown. It had reached 80% of Eternal Night Primogenitor's strength. Chapter 1205. Purng. An enormous palm imbued with an endless world of darkness slapped over. Even though Sword Master was prepared for it, he still felt the pressure. Emperor Summer is right. This Undying Underworld Emperor is indeed on the same level as him. Truly frightening. He naturally informed Emperor Summer before coming to obstruct the other party. Emperor Summer also said at that time, Bewitching Sword, this Undying Underworld Emperor isn't any weaker than me. He might even be stronger than me. He has left the Realm Heart Great Land for too long. I can't see through his strength at all. Now it seems. He was indeed on the same level as Emperor Summer. As for being stronger, it wasn't obvious. There was a limit to how strong he was. But Sword Master did not know that firstly, Undying Underworld Emperor did not unleash his strongest technique. Secondly, Undying Underworld Emperor's greatest achievement over the long years was pondering over how to refine a Deathwalker. If he succeeded in the sacrifice, he could refine a Deathwalker that was qualified to be called a half-chaotic origin lifeform body. In terms of strength, it could fight against some of the weakest chaotic origin lifeforms. Bewitching Sword, remember. You are going to protect the weak and not Monarch Feishua. Don't fall out with Undying Underworld Emperor. Just advise him. He won't be so foolish as to become enemies with my Summerwind Ancient Nation. Emperor Summer instructed at that time. Emperor Summer and the others were indeed not afraid. Emperor Summer had many avatars. Just the Summerwind capital was the biggest city in the entire Realm Heart Great Land. It had an unfathomable population. The core clansmen of the Summer clan were located in several major cities, and all of them were protected by his avatars. Hence, even if they fell out, the core cities would not be a problem. He believed that Undying Underworld Emperor would not be so foolish before there was no great enmity. Indeed, the one who sacrificed the sacrifice was Monarch Feishua. Undying Underworld Emperor naturally hated that Monarch Feishua. He would not create a terrifying enemy just because of such a minor matter. Hong, an enormous palm slapped down, causing many sword lights to dissipate. Even the Sword Master was sent flying backwards from the impact. He crashed into the light barrier of the Flying Snow City's city protecting array, and he immediately flew up again. The weapon in your hand isn't a supreme graded secret treasure, yet you are unparalleled? Undying Underworld Emperor sneered when he saw that. It's a pity that none of you are qualified to be unparalleled in front of me. In the entire Realm Heart Great Land. In fact, 2 of them were above the invincible realm. One was the Xia Emperor. All of them were able to heavily injure Eternal Night Primogenitor and force him to flee within a short period of time. The other was the former #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, and now undying Underworld Emperor who had returned even stronger. Both of them had reached the final realm in 2 days. He was indeed much stronger. However, being stronger by a level wouldn't give him much of an advantage in battle. He would only be able to gain the upper hand. It was easy for the invincible existences to escape or retreat. Bang bang! The Sword Master continued to strike. Undying Underworld Emperor slapped several times with his palms. Even though he injured Sword Master, he merely left some blood at the edge of his lips. His injuries were light. Paragon Master Bewitching Sword, I don't have the patience to talk to you. Undying Underworld Emperor felt slightly frustrated. He once again slapped with his right hand. This time, his palm was covered in black flames. This enormous palm that covered the sky came slapping over. Even though Sword Master used his sword to defend against it, he was still slapped far away. He even spurted out fresh blood. At the same time when he slapped away Sword Master, Undying Underworld Emperor slapped down on the Feishue city below. Stop! Another loud roar sounded. Endless black clouds appeared, blocking against that slap from Undying Underworld Emperor. Purring! The black cloud was directly smacked and scattered in all directions, but it turned into countless insects. Many tiny insects rapidly flew towards a figure. They flew onto the body of that figure before transforming into a loose black robe. This was an expert with the appearance of a human-shaped flying insect. His entire body was covered in black scales. There were 2 soft feelers protruding from his forehead and a pair of thin and crystalline wings behind his back. Currently, the black robe formed from insects was wrapped around his body. He looked up at Undying Underworld Emperor. Underworld Emperor, please stop. Insect Ancestor? Undying Underworld Emperor felt slightly frustrated. You are here to stop me? He had some friendship with Insect Ancestor. He had bought and sold the devouring realm spiritual liquids before. Furthermore, Undying Underworld Emperor did not wish to fall out with Insect Ancestor. Because this sacrifice failed, and he still wanted to purchase the devouring realm spiritual liquid from Insect Ancestor. Monarch Feishue has many avatars, and you can't kill him. Why are you venting your anger on the innocent? Is there a need for this? Insect Ancestor's voice was hoarse. Sword Master was startled by the sight. The various organizations watching from the Realm Heart Great Land were incredibly startled. They could understand why Paragon Master Bewitching Sword acted. After all, Monarch Feishue was an honored guest of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. Furthermore, it was said that he had a good relationship with Paragon Master Bewitching Sword. As for Insect Ancestor, the relationship between Insect Ancestor and the Summer Wind Ancient Nation wasn't good. Furthermore, Insect Ancestor had slaughtered countless under the command of Devouring Realm Great Emperor in the past. Why would he care about those innocent lives? You care about those ants too? Undying Underworld Emperor did not dare believe it. Insect Ancestor, did I hear wrongly? The Ying Shan clan and I have an old relationship. Insect Ancestor said, speaking of which, I still owe the Ying Shan clan a huge favor. Hence, I came this time in hopes that Underworld Emperor can stop. At the moment when the various organizations in the Realm Heart Great Land were paying attention to Feishue City. Nevertheless, a piece of news was rapidly transmitted deep within the Broken Teeth Mountain range. Monarch, the true identity of Heaven's Will Taoist is Monarch Feishue. He acted to save the sentient beings in 15 nations, yet he disrupted the grand plan of Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor is furious and killed his way to the Feishue city. He wants to wipe out the entire Ying Shan clan and even the entire Feishue city. This piece of news soon reached one of the worlds within the Broken Teeth Mountain range. There were not many sentient beings in this vast world, but every single one of them was powerful. The weakest infant was at the Void God level, and the monarch of this world was currently accompanying his child. The starlight-robed male was originally accompanying his daughter with a smile. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. Heaven's Will Taoist, you have saved my daughter before. I can't just ignore this matter. the starlight-robed male remained at his original position. In reality, it was only an incarnation that remained. His true body had already left for the realm Heart Great Land, Feishue City. Feishue City. Dongbo Shui Ying looked at Insect Ancestor with shock. Insect Ancestor is here to help me? Dongbo Shui Ying did not dare believe it. He has an old relationship with the Ying Shan clan? Why is there no record of this in the history of my Ying Shan clan? The entire old ancestor of the Ying Shan clan, Old Mother Ying Shan, was still alive, yet she did not know about it. The distant insect ancestor turned around and glanced at Dongbo Shui Ying. His face that was covered in scales that resembled an insect head revealed a smile. Clearly, it was filled with goodwill. Insect ancestor felt complex in his heart. You don't recognize me anymore. Even I don't recognize myself anymore. It's just that I can't forget. My true name is Ba Tuochen, the only surviving core disciple of the Ba Tuo clan. Ba Tuochen could not forget. In the Thistleflower Nation, his clan was destroyed, and his wife was a spy sent by the enemy. During his most desperate moment, it was a white-robed young man called Ying Shan Snow Eagle who saved him. He sent him to the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. It was also the start of his fortuitous encounter at the capital of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. But before he could grow strong, he was imprisoned in the prison because he became enemies with the Fan clan. Even though he could eventually escape after becoming stronger in the dark, his growth would be very slow in the prison. It was Ying Shan Snow Eagle who appeared and sent him away. Only then did he truly become a dragon that entered the sea and began rapidly growing stronger. He hated many people. He even felt that this world was cruel and cold where the strong preyed on the weak. Even if he was in despair, that white-robed young man Ying Shan Snow Eagle made him feel that there was still a strand of light in this world. Hence, he did not care about the deaths of other sentient beings. But Ying Shan Snow Eagle was something he had to save. It's just that the opponent this time is too strong. Insect ancestor Ba Tuochen looked ahead. He had raised his strength to a limit during this short period. But compared to Undying Underworld Emperor, the gap was still too big. Suddenly, incomparably dazzling starlight appeared above Feishue City. It was condensing. Sword Master and Insect Ancestor Ba Tuochen were both startled. Even the furious Undying Underworld Emperor had a slight change in expression. He could feel a threat coming from the starlight that pervaded the entire place. The starlight condensed. It turned into a male wearing a luxurious starlight robe. His aura was noble and transcendent. He stood there looking at Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor? Who are you? Undying Underworld Emperor became solemn. In the entire realm Heart Great Land, he should be the only one who could sense how unique this newcomer was. Because he had met this type of expert before. Broken Tooth Mountain Range, Starlight World Master. The starlight-robed male chuckled. World Master. Undying Underworld Emperor's expression changed slightly. He was clear how terrifying those who could become world masters within the Broken Tooth Mountain Range were. This was also why he dared to charge into the Broken Tooth Mountain Range only after refining the Deathwalker. Naturally, world masters were merely a part of the danger in the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. Undying Underworld Emperor was not afraid of a single world master who was not within the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. You are a world master from the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. Why are you here? Undying Underworld Emperor asked. Monarch Feishue has done me a favor. Naturally, I have to come and protect him. The starlight-robed male said. Dongbo Shui Ying watched in a daze. He could understand why Sword Master would help him. But Insect Ancestor and this mysterious Starlight World Master from the Broken Tooth Mountain Range were people he did not know. Nevertheless, both of them stood out at this crucial moment. He saved countless sentient beings time and time again. Unknowingly, there were already experts willing to help him resist against Undying Underworld Emperor. One drink, one peck. This should be a type of operation of the supreme law, right? Dongbo Shui Ying suddenly had some enlightenment. Ever since he experienced the joy of freedom from the souls, he understood the direction of the Tao of Soul and saw the direction of fusing the 5 branches of the mirage and illusory realm together. He had vaguely touched upon a higher law at the soul level. He also vaguely understood the operation of the supreme law. He saved the sentient beings, and from them he comprehended the direction of the Tao of mirage and illusory realm. He saved countless lives in the realm heart great land. And during times of crisis, there were also experts who stood out for him. Chapter 1206. Sword Master, Insect Ancestor, and the mysterious Starlight World Master. The 3 of them stood above the Feishua city, shielding undying underworld emperor. This scene made those who were worried about Ying Shan Snow Eagle in Realm Heart Great Land heave a sigh of relief. 3 great experts are here to help. That Broken Tooth Mountain Range World Master is even more unfathomable. Southern Cloud King had always been anxious. At this moment he felt slightly more relaxed. With their help, Snow Eagle should be able to survive this calamity. Who is this mysterious Starlight World Master from Broken Tooth Mountain Range? He seems to be someone that undying underworld emperor is slightly afraid of. Within Feishua city, Old Mother Yingshan was also constantly paying attention. After all, this concerned the survival of the entire Yingshan clan. The moment Feishua city was breached, the Yingshan clan would not be able to resist against undying underworld emperor. The favor? Monarch Feishua has done a favor for you? Undying underworld emperor angrily said, "You are a world master from Broken Tooth Mountain Range, and you should be stronger than him, right? He has done you a favor? He has saved my daughter before." The starlight-robed male chuckled, "Underworld Emperor, Monarch Feishua has many avatars. It is impossible for you to kill him, so why the need? It is better for you to retreat." "Very good." Undying Underworld Emperor swept his gaze across Sword Master, Insect Ancestor, and finally at that starlight-robed male. "You are merely a world master from one of the many worlds in Broken Tooth Mountain Range. Now that you have left your own world, I do want to see how strong you are. As for Paragon Master Bewitching Sword and Insect Ancestor, both of you should scram for me. Today, it is futile for anyone to obstruct me." The moment he finished speaking, Undying Underworld Emperor's palms covered the entire sky. Each palm was filled with a world of black flames. Those who saw it would feel their hearts trembling in despair. 2 enormous palms came slapping over. One palm swept towards Insect Ancestor and Sword Master. The other palm swept towards that starlight-robed male. The palm was too big. It encompassed the entire world and could not be evaded. Split. Sword Master drew his sword. Sword light flashed out, tearing the world apart. The Insect Ancestor snorted. The black robe that he was wearing suddenly turned into a black rod. This was the weapon that was most suitable for him. The Insect Ancestor wielded the black short rod and stabbed upwards. His arm swelled, and so did the black rod in his hand. Like a heavenly pillar, it pierced into the black flame world of the huge palm. Who, Undying Underworld Emperor easily smashed down with his palm. Sword Master's sword light shattered, and the black rod in Insect Ancestor's hand once again shattered into countless insects. As the Sword Master retreated, he used his swordsmanship to divert the force. Insect Ancestor simply flapped his wings and tore through layers of spatial obstructions as he retreated at high speed. Even though Undying Underworld Emperor held the upper hand, he suddenly let out a cry of pain. Because Starlight World Master was wielding a spear that forcefully pierced through the other palm of Undying Underworld Emperor. It even pierced through the black flame world, causing that world to collapse. Undying Underworld Emperor's palm was forced to reveal its original form. A hole had been pierced through. What a Starlight World Lord! If we were in your world, I might still give you some leeway. But in the Realm Heart Great Land? Scram for me! Undying Underworld Emperor went berserk. That unique metallic heart in his body ignited a droplet of golden blood, causing a unique golden energy to surge into his left hand. His left hand turned completely golden. It was incredibly noble. Undying Underworld Emperor directly waved his left hand at Starlight World Master. This is? The expression of Starlight World Master changed. He felt a threat from that enormous golden palm. If it were in his own world, he would not be afraid. But now that he was in the realm Heart Great Land, he was weaker by an entire level. Ooh! The spear in his hand rotated slightly before parrying the attack. Purring! The gigantic golden palm slammed down, causing time to freeze and space to shatter. There was nowhere to dodge. The spear in Starlight World Lord's hand trembled from the impact, and his hands were covered in blood. He could not help but turn into a stream of light and be blasted away. As for Insect Ancestor and Sword Master, even if Undying Underworld Emperor did not bring out his trump card, the two of them would still be suppressed. After all, in terms of strength, Sword Master was still slightly better. He still had 80% of the strength of Eternal Night Primogenitor and could be considered unparalleled. As for Insect Ancestor, he was much weaker. He did not have any supreme secret impartation. In terms of combat strength, he was merely slightly stronger than most final realm cultivators. Dongbo Shui Ying sent several avatars and they were not any weaker than Insect Ancestor. But Insect Ancestor's survivability was quite formidable. What? Within the royal palace of Summer Wind Ancient Nation, Emperor Summer had been watching the battle. At this moment, his expression changed. This Undying Underworld Emperor still has such a technique? He stared at that enormous palm that was suffused with golden light. If one said that the previous technique of Undying Underworld Emperor was comparable to Emperor Summer's. But at this moment, the power of this golden palm had surpassed that of Emperor Summer. His strength is indeed stronger than mine, Emperor Summer thought. But even if the sacrificial ritual was disrupted by Ying Shan's Snow Eagle, he did not unleash such power. He was forced into a corner by Starlight World Master. Perhaps he paid a price for using this technique? If it was a commonly used technique, why did he hide it until now? So powerful. Amazing. Undying Underworld Emperor is indeed stronger than Emperor Summer. In the entire realm Heart Great Land, the strongest unparalleled existences is still Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor is the strongest expert in realm Heart Great Land. Many unparalleled existences made their judgment as they watched this scene. Scram for me. Undying Underworld Emperor stood in midair. He emitted a dark aura that engulfed the world. His palm contained a world of dark flames that suppressed Sword Master and Insect Ancestor, forcing the two of them to evade in a sorry state. His other palm turned into a vast and dazzling golden palm. It repelled that Starlight World Master with a single palm. Closely following that, he sent another palm over. Both of them blasted open a spatial passageway and sent the Starlight World Lord flying through it. Ying Shan Snow Eagle, I've said before that nobody can save you. Undying Underworld Emperor turned his gaze towards Dongbo Shuang, who was above Feishue City. His eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent. He kept his enormous golden palm before slapping it down on Feishue City. Die for me. The golden palm was incredibly powerful. This palm was absolutely a full-powered attack from the strongest expert in Realm Heart Great Land. It was also an incomparably furious attack. At this moment, many parties became anxious. Those cultivators who were indebted to Dongbo Shui Ying were incredibly anxious. Those who admired Dongbo Shui Ying were anxious too. Southern Cloud King revealed a look of despair. I've said before that I should let him endure for a while. This is the ending of my Ying Shan clan? Old Mother Ying Shan stood within Feishue City. She looked up at that enormous golden palm descending from the sky. At this moment, Sword Master and Insect Ancestor were both sent flying. They were incredibly anxious. Ying Shan Snow Eagle. Barbaturin truly wanted to help his benefactor. Snow Eagle. Sword Master was even more anxious. But it was useless. There was nothing that they could do. Even Starlight World Master was sent flying. Even though he rushed back, he could not defend against this palm in time. This palm could be said to be an apocalyptic palm. Even though the laws in Realm Heart Great Land were strict, it was still easy for this palm to destroy the entire Feishue City. Azure River. Dongwu Shuiying extended his hand, causing a black spear to appear in his hand. He abruptly raised this spear with both his hands. Hong Long Long, many arrays across the entire Feishue city began operating. Many inscriptions were activated. Many light rays converged on the body of Dongwu Shuiying. At this moment, Dongwu Shuiying, who carried the array plate core, became the core of all arrays in Feishue city. Chaotic origin, world aligned, great cleave. The eyes of Dongwu Shuiying were filled with madness. He brandished the spear in his hand and hacked upwards. One could see many cracks appearing in the surrounding world. Pitch-black chaotic origin energy surged out from these cracks and converged on this spear. Following that, Dongwu Shuiying hacked down with both hands. Hong Ka, the world split apart. It was truly splitting apart. The entire origin world split apart. A pitch-black crack seemed to have split the world apart. It also formed a black crack on that enormous golden palm. Chi, the golden light on the surface of the original golden palm dimmed. Following that, the golden light dissipated. That enormous palm was split into two. Furthermore, part of the palm was corroded under this power. Following that, the entire palm rapidly recovered. It was just that undying underworld emperor watched with disbelief. His absolute move was blocked? Chapter 1207. What? Southern Cloud King, Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, Emperor Tsong, Limitless City Master, Realm Beast King, Apocalyptic God Emperor, Moonflower King, Eternal Night Primogenitor, and many other Apex experts across the entire Realm Heart Great Land were watching this battle with their mouths agape. They could see that the power of that palm from Undying Underworld Emperor represented the Apex in Realm Heart Great Land. Even Emperor Summer was likely weaker by an entire level. This palm should have turned the entire Feishue city into ashes. But in the end, it was parried? Is this real? Old Mother Yingshan, who was originally looking upwards, was prepared to die. But that white-robed young man Yingshan Shuiying, who wielded a spear in his hand, had actually parried against that palm. He did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Strictly speaking, Undying Underworld Emperor's hand was even injured. I knew it. Snow Eagle must have something to rely on. Sword Master revealed a look of excitement when he saw that. He still wanted to save the sentient beings from the 15 nations when facing the threat of Undying Underworld Emperor. I guess that he must have something to rely on. It's just that I can't imagine what he relied on. Who would have thought that he could become so strong in Feishue City? By relying on the arrays of Feishue City, he could become so strong? Emperor Summer was slightly startled too. If even Undying Underworld Emperor could not deal against him, he would be truly unparalleled in Feishue City. Ancestor Fan was startled too. It was normal for one to become so strong in his territory by relying on the arrays. But there was a limit to how much he could improve by relying on the arrays. For instance, Southern Cloud King had spent a huge fortune to stabilize the Southern Cloud capital. Only in the capital could he fight against unparalleled existences directly. As for Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, Emperor Tsong, and others, they were powerful to begin with. If they were in their own cities, Emperor Summer would be much stronger in the Summer Wind capital, and Undying Underworld Emperor would simply be seeking death. How could this be? Undying Underworld Emperor gritted his teeth. He stared downwards. Even with the help of the arrays in his territory, it is fine if he could fight against ordinary unparalleled existences. But how could he stop me? The Undying Underworld Emperor did not believe it. He roared out. That unique metallic heart in his body ignited another 2 drops of golden blood. He was obviously angry. No matter what, he had to make this Snow Eagle pay the price. Boom, boom. A pair of horrifying golden palms descended once more. It was just that this time around, the 2 palms enveloped over at the same time. Their might was so great that the expressions of Sword Master, Insect Ancestor, and the others changed, not daring to face them head-on. Starlight World Lord, who had just returned, was in no hurry to make a move. I didn't expect Emperor Feishue to be able to counter that move head-on. At the very least, he seems to be stronger than me in his lair, Feishua City? Hong. Dongwu Shui Ying wielded his spear. Many arrays in the entire Feishua City were activated to augment his body. Through the chaotic origin weapon Azure River Spear, he guided the surrounding void. For a moment, the entire sky above Feishua City had fallen into darkness. Amidst the darkness, chaotic origin energy fused into the void and suppressed that undying underworld emperor. Dongwu Shui Ying had obtained the chaotic origin weapon 300 billion years ago. Ever since he got his hands on this chaotic origin weapon, Dongwu Shui Ying had naturally researched on how to unleash a stronger power. If he could perfectly fuse the arrays of Feishua City with this spear. Hence, he had modified many techniques. A surging dark chaotic origin domain pervaded everywhere. It suppressed Undying Underworld Emperor and that pair of golden palms. Undying Underworld Emperor could not help but change his expression. Following that, Dongwu Shui Ying once again executed his spear technique. One could see a simple stab from his spear technique, yet it caused many bubbles to appear. Those bubbles started collapsing one after another. That destructive power eventually clashed against that pair of golden palms. Hong long long, booming sounds could be heard continuously. Undying Underworld Emperor's expression remained savage. He used his palms to resist against everything. He did not stop at all. Chaotic Origin, Myriad Realms Movement Technique. Dongwu Shui Ying stabbed out with his spear, forming an endless chaotic origin maelstrom to protect his body. The spear stabbed against the golden palms. Many terrifying shockwaves were continuously dissipated by the endless chaotic origin maelstrom. None of the shockwaves reached his body. The golden light on the palms of Undying Underworld Emperor dimmed once again. What? Undying Underworld Emperor became truly anxious. He looked at Dongwu Shui Ying with disbelief. At this moment, he understood that even if he ignited the precious blood in his heart, he could only fight to a draw. Escape. Undying Underworld Emperor gritted his teeth. He forced his way into Feishua City. He no longer wished to defeat this Feishua monarch. Instead, he wanted to infiltrate Feishua City and wreak havoc. Nevertheless, the entire Feishua City was within the domain of Dongwu Shui Ying. Undying Underworld Emperor had just barely passed through the layers of world ripples and entered Feishua City when a terrifying spatial ripple enveloped him, teleporting him out. The scene before his eyes blurred. He had arrived outside Feishua City. In terms of domain control, even though he cultivated in the two final Daos of Death and Flame, his domain control could not compare to experts in the Dao of Void. Dongwu Shui Ying cultivated a supreme secret impartation. He was augmented by many arrays and had a chaotic origin weapon. It was fine if he was in other places, but in Feishua City he could easily control every single inch of the void. Chi Hong. Undying Underworld Emperor executed many techniques. Either by forcefully escaping, stealthily sneaking in, or barbarically attacking, they were all blocked by Dongwu Shui Ying or teleported away. Even when facing against the terrifying spear of Dongwu Shui Ying, Undying Underworld Emperor who was unwilling to burn his heart blood was forced into a miserable state. His entire body was covered in blood. How could you control so much chaotic origin energy? Undying Underworld Emperor did not dare believe it. Every single move of this snow eagle in front of him could control a frightening amount of chaotic origin energy. Even unparalleled existences could only rely on supreme-graded secret treasures to improve their laws. They were not good at controlling chaotic origin energy. But Dongwu Shui Ying was able to control too much chaotic origin energy. It even gave off the demeanor of a true chaotic origin lifeform. Unless Undying Underworld Emperor turned to that spear in the hand of Dongwu Shui Ying, the spear in your hand is a chaotic origin weapon? Dongwu Shui Ying was slightly startled. He was guessed? That's right. It must be. Even with the augmentation of arrays, it shouldn't be this exaggerated. It must be a chaotic origin weapon. A chaotic origin weapon specializes in controlling chaotic origin energy. Undying Underworld Emperor looked at the white-robed young man in front of him. Other than hatred and killing intent, there was also jealousy in his eyes. He was truly jealous. Because when he was breaking through to become a chaotic origin life form, he knew that there were some absolute geniuses in the various origin worlds whose comprehension abilities and talent were highly regarded by the chaotic origin life forms. The chaotic origin life forms would spend a lot of effort to prepare a simplified chaotic origin weapon for them, because cosmos gods could not use true chaotic origin weapons. But Undying Underworld Emperor did not know that not only did the weapon have to be simplified, it had to be personally refined by a cosmos god before one could refine a chaotic origin weapon. Who thinks highly of his talent? Is it Yuan? Undying Underworld Emperor thought. But so what if he is talented? Very few can succeed in breaking through to become a chaotic origin life form. Ying Shan Snow Eagle. Undying Underworld Emperor stared at the white-robed young man above Feishua City. Very good. No wonder you dare to spoil my plans. But you are only so strong in Feishua City. In the future, as long as you leave Feishua City, I'll kill you every time I discover you. Saying that, Undying Underworld Emperor turned around and left. He disappeared into the void. Everything gradually regained its calmness. Dongbo Shui Ying let out a sigh of relief. It is still within my expectations. Before obtaining the chaotic origin weapon, Azure River Spear, he could fight against unparalleled existences by relying on the many arrays in Feishua City. And the Azure River Spear allowed him to control the chaotic origin energy more easily. If he used it with his fists, he would only be able to unleash 10% of its power. With the Azure River Spear, he could control a much greater amount of chaotic origin energy, allowing his power to reach 10%. It was precisely because of the huge increase in his strength that allowed him to fight against Undying Underworld Emperor. But Undying Underworld Emperor is truly powerful. If I did not have the arrays supporting me, I would definitely not be his opponent in the outer world. In the outside world, I'm definitely not his opponent. Shui Ying understood this point. Of course, if he wielded the chaotic origin weapon in the outer world, he would only have about 30% of the strength of eternal primogenitor. Only with such strength could he resist against Undying Underworld Emperor in his territory. As Dongbo Shuang was reflecting over this battle, the apex organizations in Realm Heart Great Land were in a daze. Undying Underworld Emperor was indeed frightening. He was the current strongest expert in Realm Heart Great Land. And in Feishua City, Monarch Feishua had fought against Undying Underworld Emperor and even forced Undying Underworld Emperor to leave helplessly. That was too shocking. Chapter 1208. Unless this Ying Shan Snow Eagle has reached the final realm of Cosmos God? Ancestor Fan said. He stood together with Emperor Summer and Emperor Tsung. The three of them were looking at the distant southern void. No, Emperor Summer nonchalantly said, even though the many arrays in Feishua City are powerful, the profound mysteries behind the arrays are mainly focused on the Tao of Void, guiding the chaotic origin energy. I am certain that those arrays are only formidable in controlling the chaotic origin energy. They have yet to reach the final realm in the Tao of Void. When Ancestor Fan and Emperor Sky heard this, they did not suspect anything. After all, Emperor Summer was an existence who had reached the final realm in both the Tao of Void and the Tao of Flame. His comprehension of the chaotic origin energy was deep too. He's not even at the ultimate level, yet he's this strong? Even if he has a supreme secret impartation, it shouldn't be like this. Ancestor Fan was puzzled. The increase in strength is very abnormal. Grey Emperor also nodded. Yes. Emperor Summer muttered to himself. Previously, when he disrupted the ritual of Undying Underworld Emperor, the avatar he sent out had the combat power of a final realm expert. But more importantly, his ability to control the chaotic origin energy is even more amazing. In my opinion, he must have acquired a supreme secret impartation. Using its peak level 2 Cosmos God realm and a supreme graded secret impartation to unleash a final realm strength. As a Void Tao final stage expert, his judgment was very accurate. As for the power of an ultimate prime, by relying on the support of the formations of a city, they will generally only be able to rise to the level of an ordinary invincible prime, the Xia Emperor said. For instance, the 8 Silk Island Lord, the Sacred Fire City Lord, and other Ultimate Realm demons. Although they didn't have any supreme secret treasures, they would manage their bases to be impregnable. In their bases, they were invincible. It was only because the Southern Cloud King was too wealthy that he could afford to spend a huge sum of money. That was how he could gain unparalleled strength in the Southern Cloud capital. And when Ming Di is in his normal state, the power he can unleash isn't any weaker than mine. My doppelgangers can only match him if they work together. Emperor Xia said. Although Emperor Hades had also reached the ultimate level in 2 Daos, he could tell that Emperor Hades had a more profound foundation and displayed more power. Fortunately, the Xia Emperor had many clones. When he was fighting with his life on the line, that strange golden energy covered his palm. The strength he can unleash is even stronger by a few times. This strength might even be comparable to some of the weaker chaotic origin lifeforms. Emperor Summer was startled. With this strength, even unparalleled existences would be heavily injured in 1 or 2 moves. He would definitely flee and not dare to fight back. This level of combat power, Ying Shan's Snow Eagle is able to fight against it just by relying on the arrays of Feishua City. Emperor Summer shook his head. I don't understand. Indeed, he couldn't understand it. The Xia Emperor was able to understand how the formations of Feishua City worked. Emperor Xia was able to see through most of the moves that Dongbo Shuiying had executed, but the might of the moves was beyond his expectations. That surging chaotic origin energy, every move and technique contained a frightening power that startled Emperor Summer. No matter what, even Undying Underworld Emperor could only leave the Feishua City in a miserable state. Let alone us. Ancestor Fan sighed. At least in Feishua City, he is invincible. He has also formed a huge enmity with Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor has said that as long as he is discovered coming out, he will kill him. Emperor Tsang said. Emperor Summer sneered. He is merely saying some ruthless words. The moment Snow Eagle conceals and changes his aura, we can't trace him at all. If he stands in front of Undying Underworld Emperor might be able to see through him. But as long as he doesn't take the initiative to appear in front of Undying Underworld Emperor, I don't believe that Undying Underworld Emperor could trace down Dongbo Shuiying in the vast realm Heart Great Land. Seeing through and tracing down were 2 different directions. Undying Underworld Emperor being able to see through was something that startled Emperor Summer. He did not believe that Undying Underworld Emperor could trace down the avatars of Dongbo Shuiying. Ancestor Fan chuckled. Ying Shan's Snow Eagle has many avatars scattered across the realm Heart Great Land. If he could trace them down, given the temper of Undying Underworld Emperor, he would have massacred them all. Emperor Tsang guffawed. As long as he remains low profile, Undying Underworld Emperor can't do anything to Ying Shan's Snow Eagle. Unless Ying Shan's Snow Eagle reveals his strength. Various organizations were discussing. Summer Wind Ancient Nation and Myriad Realms Ancient Nation had Emperors Summer and Drifter. Hence, they were certain that Dongbo Shuiying was not at the final realm. But other organizations were still puzzled. After all, they could not see through Dongbo Shuiying if they were not final realm experts in the Tao of Void. Only they were certain of one point: Ying Shan's Snow Eagle was unparalleled in the Feishua City. This was proven by an earth-shattering battle. Forcing the number 1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, Undying Underworld Emperor, proved how strong Dongbo Shuiying was. According to Old Ancestor, Ying Shan's Snow Eagle isn't at the final realm and is still a level 2 cosmos god? Well, how could this be possible? Over time, the news of Dongbo Shuiying not reaching the final realm spread. Only many experts felt puzzled. In the sky above Feishua City, Dongbo Shuiying did not care about how the outside world viewed him. Instead, he bowed to Barbiturine, Sword Master, and that Starlight World Master. Many thanks to the 3 of you for coming to help me at this moment. They were willing to stand out and help him at this moment. Dongbo Shuiying felt moved too. It seems there is no need for us to act at all. The Starlight-robed male chuckled. The strength of Monarch Feishua is amazing. truly amazing. Monarch Feishue is indeed Monarch Feishue. Barbaturin chuckled. He was genuinely grateful to Dongbu Shuiying. He even felt in his heart that this Ying Shan Snow Eagle was an absolute expert with a heaven-defying talent. Unlike him who relied on some shortcuts, this Snow Eagle had cultivated step by step to where he was. Snow Eagle admirable. Sword Master chuckled. There was naturally no need for the two of them to speak too much. I can only barely resist against him in Feishue City. If I were in the outer world, I would only be killed. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head with a smile. He then added, the three of you, please come to my residence for a gathering. It's fine. The starlight-robed male chuckled. It is time for me to leave. In the future, if Monarch Feishue were to head to the Broken Teeth Mountain Range and coincidentally pass by the Starlight World, you can come and find me. Saying that, his body turned into starlight and dissipated. Definitely. Dongbu Shuiying said. Barbaturin and Sword Master did not decline. They treated Dongbu Shuiying as one of their own and directly descended into Feishue City. Dongbu Shuiying welcomed the two of them. He brought them into his monarch residence. My Ying Shan clan has given birth to an amazing expert. Old Mother Ying Shan stood at the peak watching as Dongbu Shuiying brought Insect Ancestor and Sword Master into his monarch residence. She could not help but feel her heart surging. In terms of strength, any avatar he sent out had the power of a final realm expert. In Feishue City, he could even fight against the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, Undying Underworld Emperor. Amazing! He is actually the child of that son of mine, Ying Shan Laihu? I dare not imagine it. I knew Monarch Feishue would become amazing in the future. I've heard that he suffered a huge loss in the hands of Eternal Night Primogenitor in the Realm Heart God Palace, and I was even feeling vexed for Monarch Feishue. Who would have thought that Monarch Feishue would use the identity of Heaven's Will Taoist to intimidate all devils in Realm Heart Great Land by himself? Even Eternal Night Primogenitor could not deal against him. Even though he offended the more terrifying Undying Underworld Emperor, he could not deal against Feishue City at all. When Monarch Feishue becomes stronger in the future, who knows, he might become unparalleled. He is building an ancient nation. The surrounding primal chaos experts from Ying Shan clan were all exclaiming in admiration. They felt terrified and uneasy during the battle previously, because the city was destroyed and they were doomed. And now they were excited and proud. Since the Ying Shan clan produced such an absolute overlord, it was destined that the Ying Shan clan would become extraordinary in the future. Even though they had to stay in Feishue City for a period of time, this was ultimately a huge city. Its population was not any less than that of some Tier 3 nations. They did not feel sullen cultivating here. Instead, they were filled with fighting spirit and anticipation. Monarch residence. Dongbu Shuiying invited Barbaturin and Sword Master to a banquet. The three of them were seated separately. There was a long table in front of them. Dongbu Shuiying personally took out some precious wine and rare fruits. Insect Ancestor. Dongbu Shuiying raised his wine cup with a smile. This time, it has truly shocked me that you could act. I wonder if you are acquainted with someone from my Ying Shan clan? He did not know this Insect Ancestor at all. I'm old friends with you. Insect Ancestor Ba-Adachin smiled, but his scaly face looked a little strange. Acquainted with me? Dongbu Shuiying was startled. Barbaturin did not hide it. After all, there was no longer a need to keep his identity a secret after cultivating to this stage. One could see his body transforming. His appearance changed too, turning into an ordinary and reserved male. He was currently smiling at Dongbu Shuiying. Senior Ying Shan Snow Eagle, do you still remember me? Dongbu Shuiying widened his eyes. He was filled with disbelief. Ba-Adachin? Chapter 1209. That time in the Thistleflower Nation, he saved Ba Tuochen because he saw injustice. Afraid that Ba Tuochen would suffer from revenge in the Thistleflower Nation, Shuiying sent him to the largest city in Realm Heart Great Land, Summer Wind Capital. After that, in the Summer Wind Capital, Shui Ying sensed that Ba Daochen was in huge trouble through karma. That was why he went to the prison to save him. To Dongbo Shui Ying, even if it was someone he did not know, Shui Ying would do his best to save the other party if he encountered injustice or danger. For instance, matters of massacres were monitored by the Southern Cloud's sacred religion. Shui Ying would resolve them the moment he discovered them. Ba Daochen? You are insect ancestor? Dongbo Shui Ying did not dare believe it. Shui Ying's cultivation speed was fast enough. Sword Master had cultivated for a much longer period than him. Nevertheless, reaching the final realm in such a short period was still heaven-defying. But Ba Tuochen was at the Unity realm in the past. In just a short few 100 billion years, he reached the final realm? Compared to him, all the other cultivators would feel ashamed. And Insect Ancestor should be the subordinate of that fallen, unparalleled existence, devouring realm Great Emperor. Who is Ba Tuochen? Sword Master asked from the side. Snow Eagle, you know Insect Ancestor? Barbaturin softly replied. Ba Tuochen is just an ordinary brat. He reached this stage only because of luck. Dongbo Shui Ying felt puzzled. Cultivation depended on strength. Even with the world flower and supreme secret impartation, it required comprehension ability. Without comprehension ability, how much could he comprehend when the world flower bloomed? How much could he comprehend when the supreme secret impartation was placed in front of him? If Monarch Feishua doesn't mind, I shall address you as Big Brother Feishua. Barbaturin chuckled. That is my honor. Dongbo Shui Ying reacted. He added, this is most likely a secret. There is no need for you to tell us about it, Ba Daochen. It's nothing much. Barbaturin said, if it were before I reached the final realm, I would still have to be careful. Now that he had reached the ultimate level, there was nothing to be afraid of. Speaking of which, I still have to thank Big Brother Feishua. That time, Big Brother Feishua saved my life and sent me from the Thistle Flower Nation to the Summer Wind Capital. I've also joined a sect in Summer Wind Capital and wish to work hard in cultivating. It's just cultivation. How could it be so simple? When I was looking for some cultivation materials in the treasured items market, I found a black insect carving. I felt like it was fated with me. I liked it from the bottom of my heart and bought it. Who would have thought that this would be the inheritance left behind by the fallen devouring realm great monarch? Devouring realm great emperor? Is that him? Dongbo Shui Ying and the Sword Master finally understood. Devouring realm great emperor was an unparalleled existence. He created the absolute art for nurturing insects, the devouring realm true scripture. Even now, many who researched on insects worshipped devouring realm great emperor. There were still many legends about him in the vast realm heart great land. Many experts were searching for the ruins of the devouring realm great emperor. The two of you should know. Barbaturin said, even though devouring realm great emperor nurtured insects, the intelligence of the insects isn't high. Their understanding of the laws is extremely low. Hence, devouring realm great emperor researched out a method to fuse poisonous insects and subordinates into one. A slightly weaker subordinate could immediately become an ultra-strong expert by fusing with a poisonous insect. Dongbo Shui Ying and the Sword Master nodded. They knew. Devouring realm great emperor relied on this method to form a powerful organization. With devouring realm great emperor's attainments in nurturing insects, he was able to nurture insects at the final realm. Barbaturin said, devouring realm great emperor even researched out a method to fuse a final realm insect with a cultivator. It's just that the requirement on the soul is too harsh. Before devouring realm great emperor could find a suitable cultivator, he suffered from an encirclement. When he suffered from an encirclement, he could only escape. For unparalleled existences to escape, in the past, the battlefield was spread across many places in the realm heart great land. Devouring realm great emperor hid his most precious inheritance. Instead, he deliberately left behind an original copy of the devouring realm true scripture. That's because it isn't that easy to improve the Tao of insect. I obtained his inheritance because my soul just so happened to be able to fuse with that ultimate insect beast. Insect ancestor Ba Tuochen laughed. However, I was too weak back then. If I tried to forcefully fuse with it, I would only be courting death. I could only strengthen my fleshy body and soul first. After that, I would gradually fuse them together. As the fusion reached a higher level, I would become stronger until I reached the final realm. Dongwu Shui-Ying and the Sword Master were both startled when they heard that. They knew. Devouring Realm Great Emperor had subordinates, and they knew that he fused his poisonous insects with his subordinates, allowing them to rapidly improve in strength. But it was fine if they could reach level 2 Cosmos God strength. Who would have thought that such a method could allow them to reach the final realm? But thinking about it, like the 9 eternal night walkers under eternal night primogenitor, the strongest had the strength of a paragon master. Perhaps they might not be as perfect as Barbaturin, but in reality, paragon masters had reached the final realm in certain aspects. I'm different from you all. Ba Tuochen shook his head. My path of improvement is practically cut off. I can only follow the guidance of devouring Realm Great Emperor and think of ways to perfect it. If I want to improve further? Unless I reach the final realm in the Tao of Insect. By nurturing my own insect, I'll let them continue growing. And allowing a final realm insect to grow stronger is something devouring Realm Great Emperor could not do in the past. As for the realm, my personal realm is very low. I haven't even reached the Cosmos God realm in my comprehension of the laws. I'm purely relying on the techniques my final realm insect possesses, Ba Tuochen said. He was willing to publicize it because he was willing to inform Snow Eagle. The destruction of his clan. He lived alone in this world. In his heart, Ba Tuochen did not have any relatives left. He even felt that Snow Eagle was the closest person to him. Bewitching Sword, I hope for you to keep the matter regarding Ba Tuochen a secret. Dongwu Shui-Ying turned to Sword Master. Naturally, since Ba Tuochen is willing to let me know of this secret, why would I spread it? Sword Master added. He was a prideful person. Since Ba Tuochen told him about it, he was naturally not willing to be a vile person. Even though Ba Tuochen was not afraid of the news leaking with his current strength, otherwise, he would not have made a deal with Undying Underworld Emperor. But it was better not to publicize it, because if he publicized it, more unparalleled existences would likely have their eyes on Ba Tuochen. Bewitching Sword Master, I admire you for acting for Big Brother Feishue. Ba Tuochen looked at Sword Master with a smile. My relationship with Snow Eagle is different from others. Sword Master said, talking about it, the two of us came from the same origin world. The two of us reincarnated. In the other origin world, the two of us came from the same religion. Barbaturin was startled. What a coincidence. It seems your origin world is very powerful too, since your religion could produce 2 ultra-powerful experts at the same time. Barbaturin sighed. Dongwu Shui-Ying and Sword Master chuckled. But they did not elaborate any further. I can't compare with Bewitching Sword. He has reached the final realm. Dongwu Shui-Ying said. You have yet to reach the final realm, yet you could still fight against Undying Underworld Emperor. Bewitching Sword Master said. Insect Ancestor asked with shock. You have yet to reach the final realm? But your strength... That's right. The two of us have obtained a supreme secret impartation. But how did you become so strong by relying on Feishue City? Bewitching Sword Master asked. Everyone treated each other with sincerity. Furthermore, with their current strength, they naturally did not mind sharing the secret. Because of this, Dongwu Shui-Ying extended his hand. A black spear appeared in his hand. This spear is called Azure River. It is a chaotic origin weapon. Chaotic origin weapon? Both Bewitching Sword Master and Insect Ancestor felt puzzled. A chaotic origin weapon is rarer and more precious than supreme-graded secret treasures. Dongwu Shui-Ying said, without it, I could merely fight against ordinary unparalleled existences in Feishue City. With it, Undying Underworld Emperor could not deal against me. At the moment when Dongwu Shui-Ying told Bewitching Sword Master and Insect Ancestor about the chaotic origin weapon, over the Realm Heart Great Land, a piece of news regarding the chaotic origin weapon was rapidly spreading. Yingshan Snow Eagle owns a chaotic origin weapon. A chaotic origin weapon is a weapon more precious than supreme-graded secret treasures. Owning this weapon would greatly aid in controlling the chaotic origin energy. He is a level 2 cosmos god, yet he relied on this chaotic origin weapon to resist against me in his Feishua city. A chaotic origin weapon is mysterious and unfathomable. A level 2 cosmos god could greatly increase his strength by using it. If a final realm cultivator were to obtain it, it would be even more helpful than supreme-graded secret treasures. No matter which Dao path a final realm cultivator cultivates, as long as he wields a chaotic origin weapon, he could easily control the chaotic origin energy. That would greatly increase his strength. This piece of news spread rapidly among the experts in Realm Heart Great Land. Everyone could see it. Undying Underworld Emperor had a sinister motive for spreading this piece of news. But many parties could not help but be tempted by it. A chaotic origin weapon could give a level 2 cosmos god such strength? This chaotic origin weapon is too formidable. Many parties were startled. Many experts felt greedy for it. Even Emperor Summer and the others were enlightened. I was wondering why his technique could be so powerful with the arrays of Feishua City supporting it. So it turns out that he wields a chaotic origin weapon. Emperor Summer sighed. A chaotic origin weapon is even more precious than supreme-graded secret treasures? At this moment, Emperor Summer thought of the large amount of chaotic origin San Donghua Shuang bought. This is the first time I heard of this chaotic origin weapon. Ancestor Fan's eyes brightened too. When Undying Underworld Emperor spread the news, unparalleled existences and final realm cultivators only learned of the existence of its chaotic origin weapon. And the majority of cosmos gods were too weak. They did not dare to think of snatching the chaotic origin weapon. They were only startled. Monarch Feishue is actually a level 2 cosmos god. Previously, the drifter from the myriad realms ancient nations spread the news saying that Monarch Feishue is a level 2 cosmos god. But now it seems he is indeed a level 2 cosmos god. A level 2 cosmos god could actually be so powerful? Unfathomable. A level 2 cosmos god could suppress all devils in Realm Heart Great Land? And he could be truly unparalleled in Feishua City? Amazing. Too formidable. Admirable. Regardless of whether they were jealous or greedy, the entire Realm Heart Great Land gradually recognized this Monarch Feishuet as the strongest Paragon Master in the history of Realm Heart Great Land. He was much stronger than Great Paragon Fui, Jia Luosha, and others. Many cultivators even naturally addressed him as Great Paragon Feishua. Great Paragon Feishua, the strongest Great Paragon in the history of Realm Heart Great Land. End of this chapter, ****. Chapter 12:10. Feishua City was vast. There were many mountain peaks and valleys within. For instance, Old Mother Yingshan occupied a mountain range and built her cavern dwelling there. Within one of the valleys, Donghua Shui Ying, Barbaturan, and Swordmaster were currently sparring with each other. Peng peng peng. Barbaturan was constantly flashing and transforming. With a flap of his wings, his speed was fast to the limit. And Donghua Shui Ying wielded his Azure River Spear. Even though he did not activate the arrays of Feishua City, he was still able to force Barbaturan into a slightly difficult situation. Many places in this valley had already turned into powder. Naturally, there were arrays isolating it from the outside as well. Hence, the battle between the three would not affect the outside world. Stop, stop, stop! Barbaturan shouted out, "It is indeed a chaotic origin weapon. It is formidable. It seems that the news released by that Undying Underworld Emperor is somewhat true." True? Bullshit. Donghua Shui Ying stopped. His temper was relatively good, yet he could not help but scold. What else did he say? No matter which Dao a final realm cultivator obtains a chaotic origin weapon, they would become much stronger. What nonsense. This chaotic origin weapon has been personally refined by me. That is why I can refine it. Other than me, no other cosmos gods can refine it. Furthermore, this is a weapon that is compatible with the supreme secret importation I obtained. Cultivators of other Tao paths can't use it even if they could refine it. Not to mention, I can't even refine it. The big brother Feishue, who asked you to shock the entire realm Heart Great Land with a single battle. You even formed a huge enmity with Undying Underworld Emperor. It is normal for him to scheme against you. Barbaturin chuckled. You don't have to care about it. In Feishue City, even Undying Underworld Emperor could not deal with Snow Eagle. It is even more impossible for other unparalleled existences to do so. Sword Master said. Even Emperor Summer was weaker by an entire level. Dongbo Shui-ing shook his head. It is still troublesome. Greedy heart, why did Devouring Realm Great Emperor and other unparalleled existences die? Some died after entering the Broken Teeth Mountain range. There were also some who died from being besieged by unparalleled existences in the realm Heart Great Land. At the end of the day, it was all because of greed. To put it nicely, it was all because they wanted to go further on the path of cultivation. Snow Eagle, let's have a match. The Sword Master laughed. All right. Dongbo Shui-ying's eyes lit up. Be careful. As he spoke, the Azure River spear in his hand instantly pierced out. This spear had already triggered the void, causing the entire void to turn dark. Amidst the darkness, endless chaotic origin energy flowed out like a maelstrom along with the Azure River spear, stabbing towards Sword Master. The tip of the spear didn't even need to touch the enemy for the terrifying power of the stab to be transmitted through the void to the Sword Master. On the surface of the Sword Master's body, countless sword lights shot up into the sky. It protected his body and withstood against this attack. Even though this protective technique he comprehended from a supreme secret impartation was formidable, he could still feel a part of the bizarre penetrative force transmitted into his body. Nevertheless, his body was like the convergence of countless sword lights that rapidly destroyed the incoming force. Nonetheless, he still staggered back a step. The Tao of Void is indeed interesting. The Sword Master guffawed. Receive a sword of mine too. What? A sword light flashed. A blood light flashed before arriving before Dongbo Shui-ing. It seemed silent, yet it startled Dongbo Shui-ing. He lightly spun his spear, causing many layers of space to obstruct the incoming attack. Nonetheless, that blood light was incredibly strange. It easily penetrated through the layers of space without suffering any damage. The power of the blood light was merely weakened by 30 to 40% before it pierced into the body of Dongbo Shui-ing. Even after using the pinnacle of voidification to dissipate the incoming force, a wound still appeared on the chest of Dongbo Shui-ing. One could see with the naked eye that the wound was rapidly healing. Your fleshy body is really strong. The Sword Master could not help but comment. Your sword is the one that is hard to deal with. The spear in Dongbo Shui-ying's hand suddenly stirred, causing the world to become turbulent. Both parties fought. One side used the Tao of destruction. He was executing techniques that were imbued with a supreme secret impartation. On the other side, Dongbo Shui-ying wielded his chaotic origin weapon. The techniques he executed using the Tao of Void were also very close. But it was clear that Dongbo Shui-ying was at a disadvantage. Snow Eagle, don't you have many avatars? Use all your techniques at once. The Sword Master urged. Ha, you are the one who asked for it. Dongbo Shui-ying guffawed. An enormous void fire lotus flower appeared by the side. 9 Dongbo Shui-yings stood on the dazzling void fire lotus flower. All of them were executing their techniques at the same time. If one said that Dongbo Shui-ying had 30% of Eternal Night Primogenitor strength when he wielded his Azure River spear, those 9 great avatars working together with the Void Fire Lotus Flower were roughly 30% of Eternal Night Primogenitor strength. Because each of the 9 avatars had 70% of his soul when he was at his peak state. And because he had absorbed the core blood of Myriad Tentacles Dragon Mother, even with 70% of his soul, every avatar was not any weaker than the soul of an ordinary Final Realm expert. It was sufficient for him to execute ordinary techniques using his heart energy. 9 Final Realm experts were also augmented by the world energy of the Void Fire Lotus Flower. More importantly, The Void Fire Lotus Flower contained the final realm Tao of Void. Through the final realm Tao of Void combined techniques, the 9 great avatars were able to work together. That was why the effects were so great. Previously, his strength was several times stronger than without the Void Fire Lotus Flower. But now that he had a chaotic origin weapon, there was still an awkward point. That was because he only had a single chaotic origin weapon, Azure River Spear. The avatar wielding the Azure River Spear could unleash a strength that far surpassed other avatars. The other 9 avatars and the Void Fire Lotus Flower could only match up. If the gap was too huge, there was not much meaning in a combined attack. But Feishua City was different. There were many arrays constructed within Feishua City, and that was just a small part of it. There were arrays in the monarch residence too. Furthermore, Dongbo Shui-Ying carried the most crucial core with him at all times. With a thought. Then he would be able to activate many formations and unleash his own powerful killer move. These arrays were created by fusing the chaotic origin 7 strikes. They were good at controlling the chaotic origin energy. When used together with the chaotic origin weapon, it was a perfect match. But the world energy of the Void Fire Lotus Flower was much weaker when used together with the Azure River Spear. Hong Hong Hong, the 9 great avatars of the Void Fire Lotus Flower began executing a combined technique. Another avatar wielded the Azure River Spear and attacked too. Despite working together, they were still forced into a difficult situation by Sword Master. After all, Sword Master had 80% of Eternal Night Primogenitor's strength when he unleashed his full strength. It is more suitable to execute a domain technique together with the Azure River Spear. Dongbo Shui-Ying experimented several times before changing his technique. 1. The 9 great avatars executed a combined technique, executing their strongest domain technique. The Void Fire Lotus Flower itself was a world treasure, and it specialized in domains. Hong Long Long, the powerful domain was like an undercurrent that pushed against Sword Master. For a moment, Sword Master was constantly being suppressed by the domain. Furthermore, the power of the domain was constantly fluctuating, greatly affecting the strength of Sword Master. Following that, Dongbo Shui-Ying wielded the Azure River Spear and fought against Sword Master. Even though he did not gain the upper hand, he was clearly having a much easier time. Ha! Dongbo Shui-Ying finally laughed. This domain of yours is really giving me a headache. Sword Master felt uncomfortable too. Even though he had obtained a supreme secret impartation and had a domain technique, it could not be compared to the Void Fire Lotus Flower, which was a world treasure. With the 9 great avatars working together, this domain was incredibly powerful. Both parties stopped and descended to the ground. Even if you are fighting against Eternal Night Primogenitor in the outside world, you should have an easy time. Sword Master chuckled. What a pity. As long as I create a huge disturbance outside, that undying underworld emperor will definitely kill his way over. Dongbo Shui-Ying shook his head. Even though my domain is formidable, it is still not strong enough in the eyes of unparalleled existences who specialized in domains. In front of undying underworld emperor, the descent of his death world is sufficient to suppress my domain. My domain can't help me at all. If I fight with him with my chaotic origin weapon, I might even be killed by him if I'm slow in escaping. It's fine if an avatar is destroyed. But the loss of my chaotic origin weapon is something I can't accept. Sword Master nodded. Suppressing the enemy with a domain might be enjoyable. But if the enemy's domain was stronger, then Dongbo Shui-Ying's domain techniques would be suppressed. Are you not planning on bringing your chaotic origin weapon with you in the future? Sword Master asked. Oh. Dongbo Shui-Ying shook his head. Wait until the day I break through to the final realm. That will be the day when I can bring my chaotic origin weapon out of Feishua City. That undying underworld emperor has been stirring up trouble and spreading the news. That battle with Big Brother Feishua is too shocking. There will definitely be many who are greedy. They would not dare to come and seek death in Feishua City. But if they were to leave, that would be troublesome. Barbaturan agreed. Snow Eagle, your accumulations in cultivation are quite deep. If you wish to break through to the final realm, You just have to break through at a crucial moment. Sword Master said. Break through again? I know I can break through again. But this final step is incredibly difficult. Dongbo Shui-ing shook his head. Honored guest Fei Shue? A voice suddenly resounded in the surroundings. Dongbo Shui-ing, Sword Master, and Barbaturin turned over. They saw the world energy condensing by the side. It condensed into the figures of Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, and Emperor Tsung. But these were condensed from the world energy. They were merely incarnations. Clearly, Emperor Summer and the others did not have any enmity when they sent their incarnations. Otherwise, Dongbo Shui-ing would naturally be on his guard when their true bodies came. Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, Emperor Tsung. Dongbo Shui-ing immediately greeted with a smile. It is the honor of my Feishue city for the three of you to visit my Feishue city. Huh? Who doesn't know the name of Great Paragon Feishue? Even Underworld Emperor has to retreat in Feishue city. Emperor Summer laughed. Dongbo Shui-ing welcomed the guests with a smile. But in his heart he vaguely understood that the other party's arrival was related to the chaotic origin weapon. Today, I'll update it once, so I'll sort out a little and prepare for the new ultimate chapter. Star. Chapter 1211. The three unparalleled existences, Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, and Emperor Tsung, arrived. Sword Master had an extraordinary relationship with them. Hence, he merely exchanged glances with them. And Barbaturin's gaze turned cold. He did not say anything. He had become enemies with the Fan clan and even killed experts from the Fan clan. Offending the Fan clan was equivalent to offending the three great clans in the Summer Wind ancient nation. Given Barbaturin's personality, he disdained lowering his head. Insect Ancestor? Ancestor Fan spoke. He chuckled. I've heard that you have some enmity with some juniors from my Fan clan. I wonder when did those juniors offend you? You have followed Devouring Realm Great Emperor for a very long time, and those juniors from my Fan clan should not have the chance to become enemies with you, right? If it were the real Insect Ancestor, he would naturally not become enemies. But Ba Tuochen had fused with a final realm insect, allowing him to perfectly disguise himself as Insect Ancestor. As for the real Insect Ancestor, in reality, he had died a very long time ago. It's just that he died stealthily. Hence, Barbaturin chose to disguise himself in order to keep a low profile and conceal his rapid rise. As for now, even though he was not afraid of revealing his identity, he still chose to act as Insect Ancestor to avoid trouble. Anyway, his family and friends were no longer around. Even though this vast realm Heart Great Land was vast, he was just a lone person. Instead, it was his benefactor Shan Snow Eagle who was the closest to him. Barbaturin coldly snorted. He has no enmity with me, but he has enmity with my disciple. Fan clan, your juniors are truly tyrannical. It's a pity that I won't tolerate them bullying me. It's just a minor matter. You are also a good friend of Honored Guest Fei Shue, and Honored Guest Fei Shue has a deep relationship with my Fan clan. Why don't we forget about some past enmity? Ancestor Fan chuckled. He was high above and naturally did not care about the minor enmity between disciples from the Fan clan. After all, the Fan clan was too big. It's just that Insect Ancestor was a final realm expert and had no worries. Such an enemy was not suitable to become enemies, because he was fearless and could not be killed. Rest assured, I've killed those who should be killed. I won't implicate those who should not be killed. Barbaturin coldly snorted. Ancestor Fan chuckled and nodded. He felt that this Insect Ancestor's personality was sufficiently cold. He turned to Dongbo Shui-ing. Honored Guest Fei Shue, I heard that you suffered a huge loss in the Realm Heart God Palace and was killed by Eternal Night Primogenitor, with all your treasures stolen. Now it seems that your true harvest in the Realm Heart God Palace should be a supreme secret importation. Emperor Xia and Emperor Tsung looked at Dongbo Shui-ing as well. Dongbo Shui-ing nodded. The first time I entered the Realm Heart God Palace, I was fortunate to obtain it. This is my first time entering as well. Lord Bewitching Sword sighed. The two of you came from the same origin world and the same sect. Your innate talents and comprehension abilities are really high. Emperor Summer sighed. In the past, when Yuan created the Realm Heart Great Land and Realm Heart God Palace, it is much harder to obtain a supreme-graded secret impartation than a supreme-graded secret treasure. Now that the two of you have obtained it, as long as you reach 10% of the final realm, you can enter the Realm Heart God Palace and obtain supreme-graded secret treasures easily. Bewitching Sword has already broken through to the final realm. As for honored guest Fei Xue, I believe he will reach it soon. Dongwu Shui-Ying shook his head with a helpless smile. I wish to step into the final realm too. But how could this step be that simple? I wish to ask. That chaotic origin weapon of yours should be refined using chaotic origin sand, right? Emperor Summer asked. Emperor Summer knows about it? Dongwu Shui-Ying was startled. He had only told Insect Ancestor and Sword Master about it. Even if Sword Master were to inform Emperor Summer and the others, he would still inform Shui-Ying beforehand. It is just a conjecture. Emperor Summer said, in the past, you were killed in the Realm Heart God Palace. Your avatar was destroyed, and you did not bring any treasures out. The only thing you could bring out is your memories. In addition to the 50,000 kilograms of chaotic origin sand that you bought from me previously, I deduced that it should be a chaotic origin weapon refined by you. Dongwu Shui-Ying nodded. He did not hide it. It's just that this inheritance, you should know that it cannot be spread out. Emperor Summer, Emperor Song, and Ancestor Fan understood. Supreme secret impartation and many other precious inheritances could not be spread out even though they were imparted by Yuan. The chaotic origin Dao scroll and unphased mystical technique that they spread out were created by Emperor Summer and others. The few of us have cultivated to this stage. Our next step is to jump out of this cage and become a chaotic origin weapon. Emperor Summer said. Emperor Song and Ancestor Fan turned to Dongwu Shui-Ying too. Emperor Summer continued solemnly, we will naturally not believe the news spread by that undying underworld emperor. But we have never heard of a chaotic origin weapon before. Hence, I hope you can introduce it to us so that we can understand it better. Dongwu Shui-Ying chuckled. This is simple. He understood the Dao heart of Emperor Summer and the others. How much they desired to jump out of the cage. Like Emperor Summer, he was previously the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. Even Undying Underworld Emperor could only suppress Emperor Summer by using his trump card. It was lonely being an expert. Emperor Summer was truly lonely. He desired to jump out of the cage too much. If Emperor Summer could not satisfy this little request of theirs, he would be offending them. The chaotic origin weapon is originally a weapon used by chaotic origin lifeforms. Dongwu Shui-Ying explained, us cosmos gods can't use it under normal circumstances, and it is impossible for us to refine it. But Yuan has thought of a way to let me personally refine a chaotic origin weapon. Because during the refinement process, every single material has been refined by me. Hence, it is relatively easier to refine the weapon successfully. Because for a cosmos god like me to refine it successfully, firstly, it must be a Dao that I specialize in. Secondly, it must be simple enough. Hence, this chaotic origin weapon is a Dao of void chaotic origin weapon. Furthermore, compared to true chaotic origin weapons, it has been simplified. Emperor Summer, Emperor Song, and Ancestor Fan softly nodded. Please have a look. Dongwu Shui-Ying extended his hand. The Azure River Spear appeared in his palm. He slightly activated it, causing many inscriptions to appear on the Azure River Spear. You will understand once you see it. Emperor Summer, Emperor Song, and Ancestor Fan carefully observed it. Emperor Song and Ancestor Fan were slightly puzzled too. Emperor Summer immediately understood more than half of the inscriptions. He understood everything related to the Dao of Void. But there were still many aspects that he was puzzled about. If he had the supreme secret impartations to guide and analyze the inscriptions, it would naturally be easier for him to understand. But it was hard to fully comprehend just the inscriptions that appeared on the surface. After all, there were many techniques that involved the chaotic origin energy. They were truly exquisite and extraordinary. Furthermore, Some of the inscriptions that were refined by Dongbo Ying were purely carving them according to the prescribed order. He understood how to break them down, but fusing them into a whole was something he did not understand. It is indeed a Tao of void chaotic origin weapon. Emperor Summer nodded. It is useless to obtain other Tao paths. Furthermore, it seems to specialize in controlling the chaotic origin weapon. Honored guest Feishu, many thanks. It allows us to directly observe the inscriptions on the chaotic origin weapon. Dongbo Ying chuckled. It's a minor matter. How difficult was it to deduce a cultivation technique just by looking at the inscriptions? Just like supreme graded secret treasures, there were quite a few in the entire Realm Heart Great Land. The inscriptions on supreme graded secret treasures would appear the moment they were activated. But so what if others saw it? Final realm cultivators would only feel confused when looking at the profound mysteries related to the chaotic origin level. The complexity of a chaotic origin weapon was not any weaker than supreme-graded secret treasures. Dongbo Ying had to break it down into many small steps before he succeeded. In the following days, there were many who came to visit Dongbo Ying. The 5 ancestors from the Myriad Realms Ancient Nation also came in 2 batches. Towering Sky Ancient Nation and Icy Snow Ancient Nation came to visit. Dongbo Ying received them one by one. He was also very generous in allowing them to view the inscriptions on the chaotic origin weapon. Actually, in the entire Realm Heart Great Land, only Drifter and Emperor Summer could understand more than half of the inscriptions. Furthermore, they mainly understood the portion related to the Tao of Void. Others were in a daze. They could only vaguely ascertain that those inscriptions were related to the Tao of Void. In addition, Drifter and Emperor Summer had publicly announced that it was a Tao of Void chaotic origin weapon. Only experts in the Tao of Void could use it. Furthermore, it was practically impossible for cosmos gods to refine it. In reality, he was giving face to Dongbo Ying by saying, practically impossible to refine it. Emperor Summer was close to Dongbo Ying. And Drifter had a transcendent personality, and Dongbo Ying treated him very politely. That gave Drifter a favorable impression of Dongbo Ying. That was why he publicly announced these. In addition to Dongbo Ying's strength, he could be said to be the strongest expert in Realm Heart Great Land in Feishua City. Undying Underworld Emperor originally wanted to use this opportunity to bring trouble to Dongbo Ying, yet he failed. Moonflower King? Someone like him wishes to see the inscriptions on my chaotic origin weapon? Dongbo Ying directly expelled the incarnation of the other party. Moonflower King, Eternal Night Primogenitor, Extreme Night Primogenitor, and other Final Realm Great Devils were not given any face by Dongbo Ying. Wanting to see the chaotic origin weapon? Dream on. Regardless, he had already offended them. Dongbo Ying did not show any mercy when he killed the devils from the Moonflower Ancient Nation. Chapter 12:12. The night was as cold as water. Within the cold underground palace, the palace itself was huge. Through the void array, it revealed an even vaster space. The palace had 6 levels. The upper 3 floors were the residences of the Hall Master and his disciples. The lower 3 levels were where the experiments were conducted. Currently, in the lowest level, this level was dark. The ground was suffused with a crimson color, and the stench of blood permeated the place. I've finally gathered all the experimental materials. The eyes of the black-robed Hall Master were filled with anticipation. He took out a jade bottle and pulled out the cork. At that moment, hua, countless figures flew out. Trillions of cultivators were teleported out. These cultivators who were released looked around them uneasily. The crimson ground was emitting a stench of blood. This made them even more uneasy. I have to be fast. Any delay might lead to unforeseen circumstances. Damn that great paragon Feishua. Why is he so nosy? Why does he care about the lives of these ants? The black-robed Hall Master thought, it makes me even more careful in my experiments. I don't dare to experiment with too many materials. But this time, it is too important. I must have enough experimental bodies. I can't care anymore. I'll do it as soon as possible. The black-robed hall master felt sullen too. He originally researched the fleshy body and soul of cultivators. He experimented time and time again to explore his Tao of cultivation. Ever since Heavens Will Taoist appeared, he became much more careful. Every time he experimented, he would use fewer materials. Small-scale massacres were all too common in the realm Heart Great Land. Some of the grudges and killings in the realm Heart Great Land resulted in the deaths of more than 10,000 beings. Dongwu Shui-ing could not interfere even if he wanted to. Only when large-scale massacres occurred would he interfere. It's just that some experiments required a large number of experimental bodies. I've collected enough materials for a single experiment. This time, I must succeed. I'll risk it. The black-robed palace master suddenly appeared in midair in this layer of space. His massive body shadow caused the countless living beings below to be filled with fear. The black-robed palace master's massive body enveloped the area below. His cold eyes displayed the art of fear, causing these living beings to be even more terrified and panicked. I only need 10 subordinates. Those who can't handle it will die. Just as he finished speaking, the black-robed hall master began scattering down endless violet light spots. The violet light spots were still descending. A white-robed youth appeared in midair, staring coldly at the black-robed palace master. Great Sovereign Feishue. The black-robed palace master's legs went limp. He was afraid of this, but no matter how afraid he was still discovered by Supreme Sovereign Feishue. The black-robed palace master roared, "You can't kill me. I'm just cultivating." Phew. Dongwu Shui-ing waved his hand and countless purple specks of light dissipated into nothingness. For cultivation? Dongwu Shui-ing asked coldly. I'm cultivating in the body tempering school. I'm also studying the soul. I need to experiment, roared the black-robed palace master. I'm not a fiend. I just want to experiment. Dongwu Shui-ing looked down and said, 380 billion cultivators, all for the sake of an experiment. Are you not a demon? Is it wrong for me to use some ants to experiment? The black-robed palace master roared. Ants? Then in my eyes, you are just an ant. Dongwu Shui-ing waved his hand, causing the location where the black-robed palace master was at to be suppressed into a painting. As this painting dissipated, the black-robed palace master also dissipated into nothingness. Dongwu Shui-ing's expression changed. Not good. The entire palace suddenly exploded. Dongwu Shui-ing immediately controlled the void to protect all innocent sentient beings. Even the original disciples and subordinates of that black-robed palace master were protected by Dongwu Shui-ing as long as they did not have much resentments in their karma. As for those with terrifying resentment, they were exterminated along with the explosion. South, bringing along all sentient beings, Dongwu Shui-ing teleported to the wilderness by the side. They actually left behind a backup plan. The moment they die, the entire cavern dwelling will self-destruct? Dongwu Shui-ing snorted coldly. This self-destruction might pose some threat to the most ordinary cosmos gods, but to him, his domain could protect any sentient being he wanted. Quite a huge disturbance. A voice sounded. Dongwu Shui-ing's expression changed. In this vast wilderness, the sentient beings who were originally saved were still feeling excited. Some of the subordinates of the black-robed palace master were feeling uneasy. But suddenly, a terrifying darkness descended. This darkness covered the world and swept across everything. Those sentient beings were exterminated soundlessly within the darkness. Dongwu Shui-ing was also blasted backwards. He spurted out fresh blood before stopping in midair. Quite a huge disturbance. That frivolous voice was still reverberating by his ears. Dongwu Shui-ing stared afar. A figure appeared in midair. He was none other than the handsome young man wearing a crown and wearing a luxurious golden robe, undying underworld emperor. He looked at Dongwu Shui-ing with a smile that did not seem like one. The trillion sentient beings you saved were exterminated instantaneously. Do you feel unhappy? Dongwu Shui-ing's expression turned ashen. He was naturally furious. So many innocent sentient beings were exterminated just like that. Ha! Undying Underworld Emperor casually laughed. I've said it before. As long as you dare to leave Feishua City, I'll exterminate you every time I discover you. Since you want to save those ants, I'll exterminate them. Ha! If you didn't act, perhaps some of them might survive this calamity. But if you chose to save them, you won't be able to save a single one of them. This time, it's my carelessness. The next time I save them, I'll immediately bring them back to Feishua City. Dongbo Shui coldly replied. Ha! Bring them back to Feishua City? Simple. I'll purposely create a massacre. Undying Underworld Emperor chuckled. If you kill too many, you might be killed by Yuan. Dongbo Shui coldly said. Ha! Rest assured. I won't personally act. I'll let my subordinates do it. Undying Underworld Emperor grinned. Then your subordinates will all be killed by me. Dongbo Shui replied. Rest assured, I'm very good at stirring up wars and massacres. Undying Underworld Emperor looked at Dongbo Shui. By then, wouldn't you feel heartache when batches of sentient beings die? Are you furious? If it were those who treated the weak as ants, they would naturally not care. Some of the more selfish ones would not care either. Undying Underworld Emperor was simply taking advantage of the personality of Dongbo Shui. After all, Undying Underworld Emperor was filled with fury. The previous sacrificial ritual was disrupted, causing him to suffer a huge loss. When I was weak, even though there were blood sacrifices and massacres in the realm Heart Great Land, I faced them calmly. Dongbo Shui said, I'll naturally act if I can. Even if I can't save them, I have no other choice. I'll do my best and have a clear conscience. Saying that, Dongbo Shui turned around and left. Undying Underworld Emperor immediately sent a palm over. Endless darkness engulfed the area. Dongbo Shui coldly chuckled. He took the initiative to dissipate this avatar. He had many avatars, and they cultivated very quickly. Hence, he did not care about it. Undying Underworld Emperor did not lie. He had indeed begun stirring up some chaotic disputes and massacres. Even though he did not act personally, he was the one behind the scenes. Fortunately, those with some background and strength knew how intimidating Great Paragon Feishu's. They did not dare to start a massacre. Damn. Madman. It seems this Undying Underworld Emperor has a huge hatred for me. Dongbo Shui was relatively furious in Feishua City. South, a figure appeared. Sword Master. Dongbo Shui looked up. Sword Master descended from midair and sat opposite Dongbo Shui. He took up Dongbo Shui wine flask and poured himself a cup of wine. After drinking a cup, he chuckled. Undying Underworld Emperor has stirred up some disputes and massacres against you, right? Dongbo Shui nodded and coldly said, This Undying Underworld Emperor has done such things just to vent his anger. That's because he feels that his losses are too huge. Furthermore, he has fallen in your hands. That is a form of humiliation. Sword Master said, if you are strong enough to threaten him, he would be more cautious. Dongbo Shui nodded. The moment he left Feishua City, he would be trampled by Undying Underworld Emperor. That was why he acted so wantonly. Furthermore, Snow Eagle, even though our hometown is still a long time away from the Great Apocalypse. Sword Master said, but you have to reach the final realm as soon as possible. Even though I have reached the final realm, I do not know the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. You have to reach the final realm before you can bring someone away by relying on the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. And then, Dongbo Shui nodded. He had never relaxed before. You have been cultivating here and are stuck at a bottleneck. I feel that it is more suitable for you to go out and experience some life and death experiences. Sword Master said, I plan on making a trip to the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. You should come with me. And Insect Ancestor too. If he is willing, he can come along too. Going to the Broken Tooth Mountain Range? The eyes of Dongbo Shui brightened. The Broken Tooth Mountain Range was indeed dangerous. Even unparalleled existences might fall there. But he had avatars and was not afraid of dying. Then, I have just reached the final realm and plan on exploring the place. Furthermore, I have a destination in mind. Sword Master chuckled. The Summer Wind Ancient Nation's understanding of the Broken Tooth Mountain Range is much deeper than the Southern Cloud Nation's. You have a destination? Dongbo Shuiying nodded. All right. I am naturally willing to go. As for Badochen, I'll go ask him. Chapter 12-13. Very soon, Barbaturin arrived at Feishue City. As the three of them sat down, Dongbo Shuiying naturally prepared the delicacies and wine for them. Go, of course we're going. Barbaturin's cold eyes contained the coldness unique to insects. However, at this moment, his eyes were burning with excitement. I've long wanted to go to Broken Teeth Mountain Range. It's just that I'm too weak. If I were to go with Brother Feishue and Brother Bewitching Sword, I would naturally be more than happy to go. Dongbo Shuiying hurriedly said, Badochen, Bewitching Sword and I both have avatars. Even if we die in Broken Teeth Mountain Range, it's just a small matter. What about you? Barbaturin's body suddenly dissipated, turning into countless insects. Following which, he condensed and sat there, chuckling. In terms of strength, I'm slightly weaker than the two of you, Brother Feishue. However, in terms of survivability, even if my true body is destroyed, I can still come back to life. It's just that I'll need more time. In reality, I can no longer be considered an ordinary cultivator. Instead, I should be considered a final realm insect. Devouring Realm Great Emperor wasn't willing to fuse his body with the insect, turning into an insect and being restricted by the insect. However, he still lost his life in the end. If he had become a final realm insect earlier, he wouldn't have died so easily. Final realm insect? Dongbo Shuiying and Sword Master nodded slightly when they heard this. Insect beasts were nurtured. Nurturing them wasn't as careful as cultivating. Nurturing them was usually even crazier. For example, letting billions of weak insect beasts kill and devour each other to determine the strongest one. This was considered a low-level selection method, letting the insect beasts eat all sorts of unique items. For example, the treasures found in Broken Teeth Mountain Range would be fed to the insect beasts. During the process of nurturing the insect beasts, although the devouring Realm Great Emperor had comprehended the Tao of laws, this Tao was extremely harsh on the insect beasts. However, the insect beasts he researched were also extremely monstrous. Insect beasts were also at the final realm, but they could fly faster than ordinary cultivators. Their bodies were even more terrifying. Even a drop of blood could be highly toxic. The devouring Realm Great Emperor had researched the fusion method of ultimate realm insect beasts, but every ultimate realm insect beast had extremely strict requirements for the soul of the fusion cultivator. Ba Tuochen's successful fusion was indeed due to luck. All right. Dongbo Shuiying nodded his head. It's good that Badochen has the confidence to survive. We're all prepared to die this time. Yes. The Sword Master nodded. I'm afraid you two know very little about the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. I'll send you a piece of information. Information about the Broken Teeth Mountain Range was precious. Even though Dongbo Shuiying had a relationship with Southern Cloud King and understood some intelligence, the Southern Cloud King was too weak. Naturally, his intelligence could not compare with that of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. Badochen even had the inheritance of the devouring Realm Great Monarch. His understanding of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range was probably above Dongbo Shuiying. It is indeed the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. Their understanding of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range far surpasses that of devouring Realm Great Emperor. Barbaturin checked through before revealing a joyous look. Many thanks, Brother Bewitching Sword. Since we're heading there together, it's merely a piece of information. But the two of you just don't spread it out. The Sword Master chuckled. His current status in the Summer Wind Ancient Nation was incredibly high, and this piece of information was not considered much. In reality, this was just 90% of the information that the Summer Wind Ancient Nation had on the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. The remaining 10% was not something that Sword Master could spread out. That was the core secret that the Summer Wind Ancient Nation had explored. But this 90% of information had already surpassed several ancient nations like the Towering Sky Ancient Nation and Moonflower Ancient Nation. After all, Emperor Summer had many avatars and had explored deep into the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. Oh, Broken Teeth Mountain Range. Dongbo Shui Ying felt his horizons broadening. The Broken Teeth Mountain Range occupied a huge area. It was roughly equivalent to 3 Summerwind ancient nations. Even though it looked like a chain of mountains on the surface, in reality, the moment one entered the Broken Teeth Mountain Range, one would enter an incredibly vast and unique space. This unique space hid many unique worlds. And every world had several natives of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. Other than these hidden worlds, in this vast unique space, the most conspicuous thing was the sky-floating islands. Every sky-floating island was connected to a chain of mountains. The sky-floating islands covered a huge area. Almost every sky-floating island was filled with dangers. The bigger the sky-floating island, the more dangerous it was. Natives, Death Destruction Clan, low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms. Dongbo Shui Ying pondered. Within the Broken Teeth Mountain Range, there were many hidden worlds with natives living in them. When these worlds were added together, they formed an incredibly powerful force, the natives. The natives of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range were incredibly powerful. And the Death Destruction Clan and low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms practically resided on the sky-floating islands. Of course, the environment of the sky-floating islands contained all sorts of dangers too. But there were opportunities amidst the dangers. According to rumors, the natives of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range have a thin strand of chaotic origin lifeform bloodline within them, Sword Master said. Hence, it is relatively harder for them to reproduce. But every single one of them is incredibly powerful. Even their newborn babies are at the Void God level. The monarchs of every world are usually at the unparalleled level. Some of the monarchs of these worlds are exceptionally powerful. Some are even stronger than Undying Underworld Emperor. Fortunately, the Broken Teeth Mountain Range has a restriction left behind by Yuan. Those natives who are too powerful could not leave. Dongbo Shui Ying and Barbaturan nodded. A unique tribe. They all had the bloodline of a chaotic origin lifeform? Extreme Knight Primogenitor and Realm Beast King had once entered some of the worlds in the Broken Teeth Mountain Range and devoured the natives. Hence, the natives of these worlds are filled with hostility towards us cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. At the very least, they are wary of us. Few are friendly, Sword Master said. These 2 madmen. Dongbo Shui Ying also understood what Extreme Knight Primogenitor and Realm Beast King did from the intelligence provided by Sword Master. Realm Beast King loved to devour. Extreme Knight Primogenitor was very interested in the chaotic origin bloodline of the natives. Hence, he would also eat too much, forming a huge enmity. When other cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land entered, it would be troublesome. The Death Destruction Clan and low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms usually reside in the sky-floating islands. And the sky-floating islands are also the place where we have to search for treasures and opportunities. Sword Master said, there are very few low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms, and it is rare for us to meet them. Instead, the Death Destruction Clan has a huge population. They are the 2 largest tribes in the Broken Teeth Mountain Range along with the natives. It was indeed a secret that there were low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms in the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. But from what was known, the reason why they were called low-graded chaotic origin lifeforms was because their strength was limited. Firstly, their control of energy was crude. Secondly, unparalleled existences could easily survive. It was only these lowest-graded chaotic origin lifeforms that Yuan was too lazy to care about. He simply allowed them to live in the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. Instead, it was the Death Destruction Clan and the natives. Due to their huge numbers, the apex existences were the truly terrifying ones. Unparalleled existences could fall. The natives are very similar to us cultivators. Previously, that Starlight World Master even came to help you. Sword Master said, even though they are guarded against us, we can still interact with them. The Death Destruction Clan has lower intelligence. In their opinion, any cultivator can only be eaten or not eaten. There is no way for them to negotiate with us. Because we are directly heading to the sky-floating islands, our opponents are mainly the Death Destruction clan. Furthermore, we will definitely meet quite a few members of the Death Destruction clan. Dongwu Shui Ying and Barbaturin slightly nodded. This time, I plan on heading to this sky-floating island. 2 batches of Cosmos gods from my Tsang clan have died there. Hence, this time, I plan on exploring the island. Swordmaster said, I have prepared everything. I can set off any time. Like those with avatars. Like Southern Cloud King and others, most were willing to venture into the Broken Teeth Mountain range. At the most, they would just lose their avatars. And if they were lucky, they could reap a huge harvest. Haha, I have many avatars and can set off any time. Dongwu Shui Ying chuckled. I am alone. Naturally, I can leave any time. Barbaturin added. All right, after drinking this wine, we will set off today. Swordmaster was filled with excitement. This was the first time he was going to explore the Broken Teeth Mountain range after reaching the final realm. Currently, he was considered unparalleled. With this strength, he was qualified to explore the Broken Teeth Mountain range. Even though there were quite a few unparalleled existences dying in the Broken Teeth Mountain range, the Broken Teeth Mountain range was ultimately vast, and it was not easy to meet such terrifying dangers. Dongwu Shui Ying did not care about it. He had many avatars, and this was for the sake of tempering himself through life and death. It was for the sake of accelerating his breakthrough and stepping into the final realm. Chapter 12:14. So, a male carrying a god sword, a huge human-shaped insect wrapped in a black robe, and a white-robed young man appeared above the Broken Tooth Mountain range. The mountain range is continuous and boundless. Dongwu Shui Ying and the other 2 looked downwards. They could feel the space beneath them distorting. Let's go down. The 3 of them flew down together. As they got closer, the space became more distorted. Ooh! Dongwu Shui Ying and Barbaturin revealed looks of curiosity. They felt as if they had entered another world. Because the Supreme Law had undergone a transformation. The Supreme Law that originally enveloped the entire Realm Heart Great Land had become a different Supreme Law in the depths of the Broken Tooth Mountain range. Unique. When Dongwu Shui Ying and the other 2 entered the inner space of the Broken Tooth Mountain range, the mountain ranges they saw previously had turned into sky-floating islands. The space was vast and vast. Many sky-floating islands floated in the boundless space. In the Broken Tooth Mountain range world, only the sky-floating islands are dangerous. Like this boundless space and the many hidden worlds, there are no dangers in itself. Swordmaster chuckled. The sky-floating island in front of us is codenamed Ying 3975. He knew the accurate reference point. Swordmaster, Dongwu Shui Ying, and Barbaturin immediately teleported forward. Even though they were careful, they teleported over a dozen times before reaching their destination. Ying 529. Swordmaster and the other 2 stood in the void looking at an enormous sky-floating island ahead. We have arrived. The sky-floating island had a diameter of more than 150 billion kilometers. It was considered one of the smaller sky-floating islands in the Broken Tooth Mountain range world. The 2 of you have never been to a sky-floating island before. Let me remind you again that the dangers in the Broken Tooth Mountain range lie within these sky-floating islands. Swordmaster solemnly said, In a while, we will proceed according to what we discussed previously. Dongwu Shui Ying and Barbaturin did not dare to be careless. The 3 exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. So. They then flew towards the sky-floating island. On the floating island, there was a continuous mountain range. If one were to look at it from the outside, this mountain range would seem to be connected to the other mountain ranges. Yet when he entered the Broken Tooth Mountain range world, it was such a peculiar scene. What a strange aura. As they flew closer, Dongwu Shui Ying's expression changed slightly. The entire floating island was emitting an extremely cold and gloomy aura, which made him uncomfortable. Dongwu Shui Ying's connection with his clone in the outside world was affected. I can't use the Great Destruction World teleportation anymore? Great world-breaching teleportation technique. It was a heaven-defying movement technique. In the Broken Teeth Mountain range, according to the intelligence, there were hidden worlds and vast voids where the natives lived. All of them could be reached through the Great World-Breaching Transfer Technique. Even if he did not rely on the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique, he could simply teleport to the boundary and return to the Realm Heart Great Land. However, there was a mysterious repulsive power within the floating sky island that prevented him from using the Great World-Breaching teleportation technique. With a thought, Dongbua Shui-ing expanded his void domain, yet it was obstructed by this cold and gloomy energy. By relying on the void fire lotus flower, he could barely expand it to a region spanning 500,000 kilometers. He could no longer expand it any further. That cold and gloomy energy was vast and boundless. Furthermore, the suppression from this cold and gloomy energy had formed ripples visible to the naked eyes. How is it? Sword Master and Barbaturan both looked at Dongbua Shui-ing. I'm indeed suffering from a huge obstruction. My domain can only extend to 500,000 kilometers at most. Dongbua Shui-ing transmitted. At the same time, with a thought, he unleashed the illusory realm world. The illusory realm world was a world created using soul energy. Dongbua Shui-ing revealed a look of astonishment. The obstruction from the illusory realm world was clearly much weaker. But due to the existence of the cold and gloomy energy, the illusory realm world could only cover a region spanning 6 million kilometers at most. Dongbua Shui-ing did not use his full strength to unleash other techniques such as desire and bewilderment. After all, it was just for the sake of scouting his surroundings. It was fine for him to expand the illusory realm world he could explore. The sky-floating island suppresses many law techniques. Sword Master transmitted, we can't teleport here. But the Death Destruction clan doesn't suffer from any suppression on the sky-floating island. They can easily teleport. Hence, we are at a disadvantage. The suppression on my illusory realm world is slightly weaker. I can maintain it at a region spanning 6 million kilometers. Dongbua Shui-ing transmitted back. Sword Master and Barbaturan revealed a look of joy. A region spanning 6 million kilometers was considered huge. I'll go scout the surroundings, Barbaturan said. He waved his hand, causing dozens of insects to fly out in all directions. Barbaturan sent his insects to scout the surroundings. Dongbua Shui-ing naturally avoided Barbaturan and Swordmaster with his illusory realm world. As Fort Swordmaster, he was the strongest among the three of them. After all, not just Dongbua Shui-ing or Swordmaster, they brought secret treasures with them. They were merely top-graded secret treasures. Even if they were unlucky and died in battle, they could afford to lose them. They had to bring their secret treasures with them because the stronger they were, the greater their chances of obtaining rare treasures and opportunities. I found the way. Barbaturan led the way. After all, cosmos gods from the Tsang clan had come before. Hoo, there was a lump of white fog floating in the distance. The expressions of Dongbua Shui-ing, Barbaturan, and Sword Master changed slightly. According to the intelligence of the cosmos god who came from the Tsang clan who lost an avatar, the spherical white fog on this sky-floating island had a frightening corrosive power. Cosmos gods who came into contact with it would instantly die. Even secret treasures would turn into powder upon coming into contact with it. One could see that the body of final realm cosmos gods would most likely turn into powder upon coming into contact with it. This was absolutely one of the most frightening dangers on this sky-floating island. Naturally, as long as they avoided it, they would be fine. They continued moving forward. Because they could only fly slowly, it took them a long time to cross a distance of 5 billion kilometers. Along the way, they discovered quite a few environmental dangers. Dongbua Shui-ing felt that these environmental dangers might not be deliberately created by Yuan. After all, the effects of the trial were limited. It might be that Yuan's teleported them over from other places. Dongbua Shui-ing suddenly turned over. What happened? Barbaturan and Sword Master were both startled. Death Disaster Clan. Dongbua Shui-ing muttered. His illusory realm discovered a death disaster clansman with pitch-black skin that looked like a mutated beast. That death disaster clansman should have been observing them from afar. The moment he entered the region of Dongbo Shui Ying's illusory realm, he immediately retreated in alarm. The death disaster clansman is starting to appear. Sword Master transmitted, since we discovered the first one, I believe it won't be long before the first ambush occurs. Saying that, Sword Master had already pulled out the God Sword on his back. Wielding the God Sword, Sword Master's gaze was calm. He was on guard. An insect ancestor narrowed his eyes too. Even though he sent out some insects to investigate, he did not discover a single death disaster clansman at all. The three of them continued moving forward. Dongbo Shuiying would occasionally discover some death disaster clansmen appearing. These death disaster clansmen were easy to identify since their bodies were emitting a sinister aura of death. Dongbo Shuiying discovered almost all of them had pitch-black skin. I feel that they are observing their prey. They are observing us too. Dongbo Shuiying transmitted, I've already discovered 6 different death disaster clansmen. 5 of them have the appearance of mutated beasts, and 1 of them is in human form. He is even wearing a robe. Barbaturin suddenly turned to a direction with shock. What happened? Sword Master and Dongbo Shuiying were both puzzled. A furious roar sounded from afar. A figure appeared in the sky. Looking around, his eyes were burning with a unique flame. With a glance, he saw Dongbo Shuiying and the other 2 hiding in the forest. So, that figure rapidly arced across more than 50 million kilometers before arriving above Dongbo Shuiying and the others. This was a red-haired male filled with killing intent. He looked down at Dongbo Shuiying and the other 2 with a strand of vigilance in his eyes. He growled, "Cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land? Natives?" Dongbo Shuiying and Sword Master naturally recognized him. "Big Brother Fei Shue, Brother Bewitching Sword, there is a camp not too far away. There are 16 natives there." Barbaturin transmitted over, "They are extremely careful. The subordinates I sent were discovered by them the moment they discovered them. They should be natives who came to the sky-floating island to temper themselves." Dongbo Shuiying guessed. Sword Master instead laughed. "You all came to the sky-floating island to temper yourself? We're also here to adventure." Chapter 12:15. The red-haired male had a powerful aura. Standing in midair, he looked down at Dongbo Shuiying and the other 2. Of the 3, Barbaturin, who was in the form of a human-shaped big insect, had a strange aura. The final realm insect's aura was wicked and tyrannical, and it wasn't easy to offend him. Sword Master was an expert who had reached the final realm of destruction. Naturally, he had a sharp aura too. And Dongbo Shuiying did not disguise himself. Instead, his aura was the weakest. "Your Highness, judging from their aura, 2 of the 3 seem to be at the final realm." The red-haired male transmitted back, "How should we deal with them? 2 seem to be at the final realm? Are there any unparalleled existences from Realm Heart Great Land?" At that moment, many transmissions were transmitted over. The most famous unparalleled existences in Realm Heart Great Land aren't among them. The red-haired male transmitted back, "Our intelligence is from a very long time ago. Who knows if there might be some final realm cultivators in Realm Heart Great Land who have obtained a supreme graded secret treasure. In my opinion, we should befriend these 3 cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land and let them become our helpers. We should still be careful. Some cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land are wicked. That Realm Beast King and Extreme Night Primogenitor are rumored to have devoured countless sentient beings. We have already fallen to this stage. If this continues, our Blood Flame clan will most likely be wiped out. This time, we must get the sexual relation fruit so that Your Highness can become stronger. As long as Your Highness becomes stronger, only then can we snatch back our world, and only then can our Blood Flame clan continue existing. The sexual relation fruit is miraculous to us, but it isn't useful to the cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. They won't risk their lives to compete with us for it. All right, Befriend them and let them become our helpers. Ying, you should go and interact with them. Yes, Your Highness. Very soon he made his decision. Saying it was slow, but in reality, the transmission happened very quickly. A figure arced through the sky and flew over. This was a beautiful girl with silver hair. She wore a silver armor with red patterns on it. They are cultivators from the realm Heart Great Land. They aren't our enemies. There's no need for Big Brother to be nervous. The silver-haired woman spoke a few words to the red-haired man before descending near Dongbua Shui Ying's group of 3. The silver-haired woman smiled and said, "My name is Ying. This time, our team entered this floating island to search for treasures. Furthermore, the sky-floating island is filled with danger. The Death Destruction Clan is even crazier. If we work together to deal against the Death Destruction Clan, we will be able to walk further in the sky-floating island. We will also have a greater chance of acquiring treasures. What do the 3 of you think?" Dongbua Shui Ying, Sword Master, and Barbaturin looked at each other and quickly conversed. Within the Broken Teeth Mountain range. Even though the Death Destruction Clan and the natives were huge, the natives were very similar to the cultivators outside. They had high intelligence too. Even though they were guarded against the outside world, they could still work together. The greatest difference between the natives and those in the outside world was that the natives had a strand of chaotic origin life-form bloodline in their bodies. Very well, in terms of understanding of the floating islands, you are definitely above us. It is a good thing that we can work together. Sword Master took the initiative to say, "My clan's majesty and the others are not too far away. Please." The silver-haired woman smiled as she led the way. Very soon, both parties met. Even though Dongbua Shui Ying and the others were prepared to temper themselves, the Broken Teeth Mountain range did not lack danger. It was also a good thing that they could work together with the natives. In reality, some natives were not willing to work together with the cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. Both parties met and conversed briefly. Dongbua Shui Ying and the others also knew that the leader of this team was a leader called Blood Flame Ji. The others addressed this Blood Flame Ji as His Majesty. The Death Destruction Clan has their own territory. His Royal Highness Shui Yinji was a tall and handsome young man wearing a green robe. He introduced with a smile, "If we intrude into their territory, we will definitely be ambushed by them. Of course, if we are strong enough, they will fear us. We will continue heading towards the core region of the sky-floating island. If you feel any danger, you can leave anytime. Since we came here, we won't be afraid of danger. At most, we will just lose a fleshy body," Barbaturin said with a low and hoarse voice. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji immediately cheered. The other members of his team looked at Dongbua Shui Ying and the other 2. They seemed to have become much friendlier. This is truly delightful. The few of us admire the cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land the most for having avatars, allowing us to charge forward no matter how terrifying the danger is. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji sighed. In our Realm Heart Great Land, there are very few who have avatars. Dongbua Shui Ying said, "It is still better than us. We want to cultivate avatars, yet we have no way to do so." His Royal Highness Shui Yinji had a complex expression. If he had avatars, he would not have fallen to this stage. Sword Master said, "Can we set off now? Let's go. Shall we lead the way?" His Royal Highness Shui Yinji said, "Sure." Sword Master, Barbaturin, and Dongbua Shui Ying did not object to it. Both parties proceeded forward together. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji and his team of 16 walked at the front. They were also leading the way. Dongbua Shui Ying and the other 2 walked behind. Both parties were on high alert. They were mainly wary of the Death Disaster Clan. In the blink of an eye, more than 2 hours passed. The illusory realm maintained by Dongbua Shui Ying naturally avoided the 16 natives to prevent any conflicts. During these 2 hours, Dongbua Shui Ying discovered more Death Disaster clansmen spying on them. "The 3 of you must be careful. We have previously fought with the Death Disaster Clan, and they know we are not to be trifled with. You are new here. Hence, the new ambush might be directed against you. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji turned around and said to Dongbua Shui Ying and the other two, "Many thanks, Your Highness. We will be careful." Sword Master smiled in reply. Just as he finished speaking, 6 black figures suddenly appeared from the ground. They directly surrounded Dongbua Shui Ying, Barbaturan, and Sword Master. They came too suddenly. When the illusory realm sensed them, the Death Disaster clan had already arrived. Scram! All of a sudden, Insect Ancestor Ba Tuochin roared out. His mouth had strangely enlarged, and a furious roar that brought along a strange ripple spread out, causing the 6 black shadows to tremble slightly from the impact of the ripple. Furthermore, the black robe on Barbaturan's body abruptly dispersed. It turned into many insects that surrounded and attacked the 6 black figures. Every black figure suffered from the attacks of many insects. Every black figure had the appearance of a black-skinned mutated beast. They brought along a dark aura of death. Final realm insect beasts had strange and unpredictable techniques. Ever since he transacted with Undying Underworld Emperor, Barbaturan had become much stronger. Wah wah wah, the 6 black figures knew that things were amiss. They actually turned into black fog and dissipated in the void. A robe can turn into so many insects? Just by relying on these insects, he could force the 6 Death Disaster clansmen to retreat? The 16 natives were startled when they saw that. The technique of Barbaturan was different from what they knew of cultivators. This made them no longer dare to underestimate the slightly uglied Barbaturan. They were not to be trifled with. That time when Undying Underworld Emperor attacked Ba Tuochen, he used his robe to defend against it. Dongbua Shui Ying thought, that robe is undamaged too. Is it a secret treasure? Or is it formed from insects? After all, he was the first cultivator in the history of Realm Heart Great Land who fused with a final realm insect beast. Even Dongbua Shui Ying and Sword Master did not understand much about Ba Tuochen. Insect Ancestor is extraordinary. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji chuckled, but this is merely a contact. Chapter 12:16. That enormous black foggy face immediately pounced towards His Royal Highness Shui Yenji, who had a good temper. Hong! His Royal Highness Shui Yenji's body was suddenly covered in red flames. His aura abruptly surged. He punched out with his fist, causing the void ahead to burn and distort. The black foggy face turned into a black-robed young girl. That black-robed young girl forcibly resisted against the impact of the flames and killed her way over to His Royal Highness Shui Yenji. She directly sent a claw over. The hands of this black-robed young girl were pitch black and huge. They were as sharp as blades. There were also more than 20 Death Disaster clansmen surrounding and attacking the other natives. These natives naturally formed a combat formation of 3 and immediately faced the enemies. Dongbua Shui Ying was the most relaxed among those present. He was not in a rush to act. Instead, he was leisurely watching the entire battlefield. This native Royal Highness is close to unparalleled existences in terms of power. But his techniques are much cruder, and he is far from being comparable to cultivators. Dongbua Shui Ying judged. His strength was strong, but he lacked too much in the laws and profound mysteries. He should be around 20 to 30% of Eternal Night Primogenitor's strength. The other 15 subordinates were not weak, especially when the 3 of them worked together to form a combat formation. The weakest combat formation had the strength of a final realm expert, and the strongest was close to the standard of that Royal Highness. No wonder they dared to come to the sky-floating island. This team is quite strong. But Sword Master should be able to suppress them all by himself. Dongbua Shui Ying thought. Over at his side, 5 Death Disaster clansmen charged over. Insect Ancestor Ba Tuochen's black robe flew out, once again transforming into insects that engulfed those Death Disaster clansmen. It's just that this time, it did not work. The leading Death Disaster clansman was an ugly black-robed old man. His body warped into an enormous black head. He opened his mouth and swallowed all the insects in one gulp. The insects struggled again. After the giant head closed its mouth, it kept twisting its head, trapping those insects. A murderous light flashed in the eyes of Barbaturin. He flapped his wings and charged over. So. The other four figures charged toward the Sword Master and Dongbo Shui-ing. Humph. Sword Master softly shook his head. He could discern that the strongest among this batch of Death Disaster clansmen was the one who fought with Blood Flame Ji. Although the 5 beasts surrounding them were quite powerful, they were nothing in front of the Sword Master. Chi, the sword light was beautiful and resplendent. It was as if many light rays were arcing through the air, arcing through many Death Disaster clansmen. The Sword Master's sword light was very gentle. It seemed he wanted to rely on this to understand the strength of every member of the Death Destruction clan. Nevertheless, the bodies of these Death Disaster clansmen were still cut by the sword lights. Some turned into fog and escaped into the ground. Some were weaker and did not manage to escape in time. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 4 Death Destruction clansmen died, and the other 2 fled. Seeing this, the giant head that was trapping countless insects was also shocked. It couldn't hold on any longer and immediately dissipated, turning into a black fog that burrowed into the ground and escaped. No, die. As Dongbo Shui-ing and the others were having an easy time dealing with the Death Destruction clansmen, the natives were the ones suffering the main attacks from the Death Destruction clansmen. Under the joint attack of more than 20 Death Destruction clansmen, 2 combat formations of the natives had already collapsed. These 2 combat formations had a total of 6 members. Some were heavily injured and killed, though there were also some who erupted in madness. One of the natives had suddenly expanded his aura amidst his madness. His techniques had also greatly improved, reaching the final realm. His survival capabilities had also greatly improved. Shio. Sword Master frowned when he saw that. Those 2 combat formations had collapsed too quickly, and he did not have the time to save them. He immediately waved out the god sword in his hand. The sword light arced through the sky, attacking those Death Destruction clansmen. Sword Master's attacks seemed weaker than His Royal Highness Shui Yanji. Nevertheless, his techniques were incredibly profound, and the effects were more terrifying. Cultivators had a huge advantage in terms of profound techniques, much less that Sword Master had cultivated a supreme-graded secret impartation. Retreat. That black-robed young girl who was fighting with His Royal Highness Shui Yanji immediately let out a sharp howl when she saw that. Hoo! All the Death Destruction clansmen turned into black fog and tunneled underground. In terms of escaping ability, the outsiders could not compare to the Death Destruction clansmen living within the sky-floating islands. The Death Destruction clansmen could easily teleport and burrow underground here. And Dongbo Shui-ing and the others could not teleport or burrow underground, unless they were powerful enough to kill the Death Destruction clansmen within a short period. Otherwise, it would be hard for them to kill a single Death Destruction clansman. The Death Destruction clansmen have retreated. They have left. The natives heaved a sigh of relief. It was just that the atmosphere was slightly sorrowful, because they had lost 4 of their companions in just a short moment. Paragon Master Bewitching Sword, many thanks for your help. Otherwise, our losses would be even greater. His Royal Highness Shui Yanji walked over with gratitude. At the same time, his gaze towards Sword Master was different. His subordinates were also looking at Sword Master with a strand of respect. Clearly, they were much friendlier towards Dongbo Shui-ing and the others. Previously, they thought that there might be unparalleled existences amongst the 2 who seemed to be at the final realm. That was merely a guess. But after the previous battle, Blood Flame Ji and the others understood that this Paragon Master Bewitching Sword had surpassed the strongest His Royal Highness Shui Yanji of their surviving Blood Flame World Clan. He should most likely be at the unparalleled level. They naturally had to befriend a helper of this level. This way, they would have a greater chance of acquiring the Yin Spirit Fruit. Paragon Master Bewitching Sword was at the unparalleled level. That insect ancestor wasn't someone to be trifled with either. As for that white-robed young man, Great Paragon Feishue, they knew that the great paragons in Realm Heart Great Land were merely second-level cosmos gods, and should be the weakest among the 3. Since we are moving together, we are comrades. Naturally, we have to save each other. It's just that I am slightly late. Swordmaster said. They are not strong enough, yet they are willing to take the risk? Barbaturin frowned. With their strength, they shouldn't be of much help to His Royal Highness Shui Yenji, right? Why are you sending them to their deaths? This isn't sending them to their deaths. This is training. Even though 4 of us died, Fei Xue Lin has once again awakened his bloodline, greatly increasing his strength. Those natives retorted. When Dongbu Shui Ying and the other 2 heard that, they could not help but feel puzzled. It wasn't that they knew nothing about the natives. Given the long years that the Summer Wind ancient nation explored, they had a deep understanding of the natives. The natives were scattered across many hidden worlds. Each world represented a clan. Because they could awaken their bloodlines and increase their strength, it was rumored that they had the bloodline of a chaotic origin lifeform. Of the methods to awaken one's bloodline, one had to temper oneself amidst life and death situations. Under a true life and death situation, the chances of awakening one's bloodline would be greater. But many would still fall before death. Hence, those who entered the sky-floating islands risked their lives were usually very few. It was fine if an entire team of cultivators entered the sky-floating islands if they were strong. They had a higher chance of surviving. But those who were weaker could barely reach the final realm strength even when 3 of them worked together in a combat formation. It was too dangerous for them to enter the sky-floating islands. The cultivators in the Realm Heart Great Land had avatars. It was fine if they were not afraid of losing their avatars. But there was no need for the natives to do so. We are here to temper ourselves. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji simply said, since we chose to temper ourselves, we are naturally prepared to die. This time, with Paragon Master Bewitching Sword around, we will be much safer. But I have to remind you all, the strength of Paragon Master Bewitching Sword will make the Death Destruction clan feel fear. The weaker Death Destruction clan members would not dare to come again. But this sky-floating island has many groups of Death Destruction clan members. The stronger they are, the more central they would be. Even though their intelligence is ordinary, they can still communicate with each other. They know our strength. Then the next time they come, it will be more dangerous. Even with Paragon Master Bewitching Sword's strength, he might not be able to protect us. Blood Flame Ji said, what we can do now is to hurry over before they start another ambush. All right. Your Majesty, since you all understand the sky-floating island better, you should hurry over. Swordmaster said, let's not delay any further. Let's set off now. We have to travel faster. Blood Flame Ji brought everyone along at high speed this time. He knew the strength of Dongbu Shui Ying's side, and was not worried that they could not catch up. Dongbu Shui Ying and the other 2 remained behind. Have you heard what that His Majesty said? This time, the Bewitching Sword has revealed its strength. The next time the Death Destruction clan appears, even the Bewitching Sword might not be able to resist against them. Barbaturin transmitted, we have never thought of sweeping across the entire Death Destruction clan. What we want to do is to survive the pursuit of the Death Destruction clan. It would be even better if we could get some treasures too. Dongwu Shueing transmitted with a smile. Snow Eagle, you are our trump card. Perhaps I might not be able to resist against them in a while, and we might have to rely on your killing move. Sword Master transmitted. We will know how effective this killing move is in a while. Dongwu Shueing transmitted back. Big Brother Feishu, I see that this team of natives seems to treat you as the weakest amongst the 3 of us. But they do not know that I am the weakest. Barbaturin transmitted with a smile. They were all feeling relaxed. Chapter 12:17. Dongbu Shueing and the other natives were moving at an extremely fast speed towards the core of this sky-floating island. With the natives leading the way, their journey was smooth. And at another location, Hua Hua Hua, a group of black fog condensed into many Death Disaster clansmen. Some were beast-like and some were humanoid. The leader was that black-robed young girl. King, these invaders are very powerful. We can't stop them just by ourselves. They were all looking at the black-robed young girl. The black-robed young girl's pair of black claws were casually moving. Her eyes were filled with coldness as she nonchalantly said, "The invaders have far surpassed the capabilities of our branch. You should all retreat. Remember, avoid them and don't send yourselves to death. We have suffered huge losses this time. I'll report this matter upwards and leave it to the elders to deal with." All the subordinates lowered their heads respectfully. The black-robed young girl then turned into black fog and disappeared with a flash. These subordinates also turned into black fog and tunneled underground. The sky-floating island was their birthplace. Over here, they completely held the initiative. They could fight and retreat whenever they wanted. At the core of the sky-floating island, there was a huge mountain that had been dug out. Within the mountain, there were several simple palaces. It was not bad for the Death Disaster clan to construct these palaces. Some of the weaker Death Disaster clansmen were not much different from wild beasts in terms of intelligence. Only the elite experts were slightly more intelligent, and the higher-ups at the core had the highest intelligence too. But compared to the cultivators and the natives, they were too lacking. An unseen ripple formed. A lump of black fog appeared before the ripple. It condensed into a black-robed young girl. The black-robed young girl stood there coldly. A pitch-black mutated beast face appeared amidst the ripple. It stared at the black-robed young girl outside. "King Fu Su, why did you come to the clan's ground?" that ugly mutated beast face asked. "I have an important matter to report to the emperor. Hurry up and relay the message." The black-robed young girl coldly shouted. She disdained talking to this protector. "Report to the emperor?" that mutated beast face exclaimed. "King Fu Su, you really have something to report to the emperor? Do you think I dare to lie about such a matter?" The black-robed young girl shouted, "Don't waste time." The face of the mutated beast hesitated slightly. Even though this group of Death Destruction clansmen living in the clan's ground looked down on outsiders, they did not dare to offend the Death Destruction clan. However, he actually dared to report such important information to the emperor. Even if he lied to others, no one would dare to lie to the emperor. What? The invisible ripples immediately opened up a path. "Please wait in the Elders' Hall." A huge beast with a fiery red head and a black body growled from the side. The black-robed girl couldn't even be bothered to look at the guard. She quickly rushed towards the Elder Hall. The mountain occupied a vast area and was the most important core of the entire floating island. The black-clothed girl didn't wander around and went straight to the Elder's Hall. Elder Hall, it was a dark hall with 3 thrones at the top. At the center of the hall, there was a huge pond. The liquid in the pond was pitch black, but there was a strange crooked fruit tree growing there. There were 2 fruits growing on the tree. The skin of the fruits was very thin, and one could see countless rays of light circulating within the fruits. The tree was about 30 meters tall, and there was a strange gray eye at the top of the tree. The gray eye was emitting an unseen pressure. The entire hall was silent. "King Fu Su, please wait a moment." The 2 guards outside the Elder's Hall stared coldly at King Fu Su. King Fu Su snorted coldly. She stood within the Elder's Hall and waited. Given her temper, if not for the intruder being so powerful that she had to report it upwards, she would be too lazy to come to the clan's ground. The strength of the intruder had reached a stage where the clan's ground would have to be on guard. If she did not report this information upwards, she would be in big trouble once it was discovered. "King Fu Su, what exactly is the matter that you want to report to the emperor? Don't you know that the emperor and the elders are currently in deep sleep?" A tall, skinny man walked in. He had a long, thin tail that dragged on the ground. The tall, skinny man snickered. "You should know how angry the emperor and the elders are after waking up from their slumber. If it's not something important enough, I'm afraid they might even punish you." "King Chidu, I discovered an intruder in my territory." King Fu Su coldly said, "The intruder is a team of natives and 3 cultivators from the realm Heart Great Land. The leader of the team of natives isn't any weaker than me. And one of the 3 cultivators from the realm Heart Great Land is even stronger than me. He is at least a peak king." "Oh." The tall and thin male revealed a look of astonishment. There are even intruders from the realm Heart Great Land? At least a peak king? Cultivators from the realm Heart Great Land were rare. Even though cosmos gods from the realm Heart Great Land had avatars and would frequently enter the Broken Teeth Mountain range to try their luck, the Broken Teeth Mountain range was ultimately too big. This sky-floating island rarely met any cultivators from the realm Heart Great Land in history. At least a peak king had only happened once in the past. More often than not, they encountered the aboriginals. Now that you know the strength of the intruder is extraordinary, hurry up and report it upwards. The black-robed young girl said, "No rush, no rush. Regardless if it is awakening the elders or the emperor, they are extraordinary. I still have to discuss with the other kings." The tall and thin male said, "Discuss." The black-robed young girl was slightly anxious. By the time you finished discussing, the intruder would have arrived. The tall and thin male merely sneered. A non-clansground king was not qualified to question the actions of the clansground. The clansground was the ruler of the entire sky-floating island. The black-robed young girl snorted coldly when she saw that. "I've already reported the news. If any trouble were to happen, the emperor wouldn't blame me for it." "Rest assured," the tall and thin male said. At the same time, he transmitted a message to the other kings in the clansground. After some trivial discussions, after the time taken to brew a cup of tea, after discussing, there is a peak king among the intruders. It is possible that he is at the so-called unparalleled level in the realm Heart Great Land. We just need to awaken second elder and third elder. We will temporarily not awaken the grand elder and emperor. The tall and thin male said, "The enemy might still be hiding his strength." The black-robed young girl said, Don't we still have the other kings?" We are all born from the death of chaotic origin lifeforms. And those remnant clans with chaotic origin bloodlines have the bloodline of chaotic origin lifeforms hidden in their bodies too. The tall and thin male sneered. Compared to the two great clans, the cultivators are much weaker. Furthermore, we are on the sky-floating island. It is sufficient for us to deal with them. The cultivators have truly cultivated step by step from being weak. Their usage of energy is too mystical. I feel that we should at least awaken the Grand Elder. The two elders are both peak kings. If the group of kings in our clan's ground can't stop them, it isn't too late to awaken the Grand Elder. The tall and thin male chuckled. "Wait here for a moment. I'll go and awaken the two elders." At the same time when the tall and thin male walked out of the elder hall, a figure rushed over. Quick, 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 there is an intruder." The intruder has already passed through the outer perimeter. He is extremely fast and will soon reach the clan's ground. A single-horned male wrapped in a black robe roared out. He was none other than one of the kings stationed at the outermost perimeter of the clan's ground. There is a cultivator from Realm Heart Great Land who is incredibly powerful. He is at the peak of king rank and is on the same level as an elder. What? So fast? The tall and thin male was startled. The black-robed young girl in the elder hall shouted out when she heard that, "King Chi-Du, I've already asked you to hurry up. Look, he is about to kill his way to the clan's ground." The tall and thin male King Chi-Du no longer spoke. He immediately turned into a black fog and went to meet the elder. In the depths of the mountain, there was an enormous pond here. This pond was filled with a dark green liquid. An enormous pitch-black body was lying within this dark green liquid. Because the body was too big, some parts of it were exposed above the surface of the liquid. And around this pond, there were 3 other smaller ponds. Each of the 3 smaller ponds had a body lying within. Second elder, third elder. The tall and thin male King Chi-Du arrived. He immediately transmitted over. Strands of ripples tunneled into the 2 bodies lying within the 2 smaller ponds. Very soon, those 2 smaller ponds trembled. 2 bodies gradually opened their eyes. The 2 bodies turned into black fog and disappeared. Following that, they appeared by the side of the tall and thin male King Chi-Du. "King Chi-Du, why did you wake us up?" These two elders looked at King Chi-du. King Chi-du slightly bowed. There are invaders. They are a team of natives and 3 cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. One of the 3 cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land is an expert who uses the sword. He is judged to be at the peak of the King Realm. The realms of cultivators are incredibly high. We might be able to protect ourselves, but we might not be able to stop them. And on the other side, Dongbo Shui-Ying and the other 2 cultivators and the team of natives had just defeated a team of Death Disaster clansmen who ambushed them. This team of Death Disaster clansmen should not be too clear of their strength. Given the strength of Swordmaster, he could easily kill 5 Death Disaster clansmen, causing the bodies of 12 Death Disaster clansmen to dissipate. The remaining Death Disaster clansmen immediately fled. Our speed is fast enough. There should be plenty of information regarding us that the Death Disaster clan does not know. Soon, we will reach the core clan's ground of the Death Disaster clan. The team of natives were all excited and looking forward to it. That His Royal Highness Shui Yanji had even transmitted to Dongbo Shui-Ying and the other 2 cultivators, "We will kill our way to the clan's ground at the fastest speed. When you see the treasures you want, hurry up and take them. After that, we will leave immediately." Understood. Dongbo Shui-Ying and the others were also looking forward to it. They were about to reach the core clan's ground. Today was even faster. Chapter 12-18. In the cold and shabby elder hall. The 2 elders sat on top. At the same time, many figures flew in from outside and entered the hall. Some of them were in human form, while others were in beast form. As for the black-robed girl, King Fu Sua, she stood at the side and watched everything coldly. "Everyone's here." The 3rd elder, who looked like a humanoid black-scaled monster, looked down with his gray eyes. "Elder." The 11 figures bowed their heads respectfully. Even the black-robed girl, King Fu Sua, bowed her head slightly to show her respect. The 2nd elder and the 3rd elder looked at each other. 3rd elder continued, "This time, other than the natives, there are also cultivators from the Realm Heart Great Land. King Chi-du, stay in the clan grounds and wait for my and 2nd elder's orders. The other 10 kings, as well as King Fu Sua, will move together with us." "King Fu Sua, you don't have any objections, right?" The black-robed girl, King Fu Sua, smiled and bowed. "It's my pleasure to serve the clan." The 3rd elder nodded. King Fu Sua was ranked at the top among all the kings. Back then, she had failed in the fight for the position of elder. She was not willing to be dispatched, so she led a group of subordinates and left the clan grounds. After all, King Fu Sua was a very strong battle power. The 2 elders still had to mobilize her. Of the invaders, there are a total of 3 cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. Those who use swords are unparalleled existences. The 2nd elder and I will deal with them together. As for the remaining 2 cultivators, one should be at the final realm, and the other should be at the level 2 Cosmos God realm. Queen Fu Sua, you deal with 2 of them. All the other kings work together to destroy the natives as quickly as possible. Go and help King Fu Sua." "Yes." Including King Fu Sua, the 11 kings all obeyed. "Let's not waste any more time. Kill the enemies outside the clan's territory. Let's go." 3rd elder and 2nd elder stood up at the same time. All the kings immediately moved to the sides. So. The 2 elders instantly flew out of the hall, and the other 11 kings immediately followed. All of them turned into black mist filled with the aura of death and disappeared from the clan grounds. They directly went to attack. Only King Chi-du was left to guard the clan grounds. The Death Destruction clan could easily move and teleport within the sky-floating islands. Hence, they were not worried about the safety of their clan's ground, because they could return at any time. So, Dongbo Shui-Ying and the others were heading towards the clan's territory at an extremely fast speed. Traveling through the dangerous floating island, His Royal Highness Shui Yanji, who was in the team of natives, informed them of some of the dangerous places through voice transmission. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura descended. 13 figures appeared out of thin air. Be it insect ancestors' warning technique, Dongbo Shui Ying's illusory world scouting, or the vigilance of the natives, all of them were only discovered when the enemies appeared. Every single one of these 13 figures gave off a terrifying aura. Dongbo Shui Ying, insect ancestor, and the others could feel an intense threat coming from them. There were two figures in the lead. One was a humanoid scaled monster, while the other was a hunchbacked old man surrounded by green mist. Both of their auras were majestic, and they were even more tyrannical than the eternal night primogenitor to Dongbo Shui Ying. There were 11 figures behind them, some in human form, some in beast form, and all of them had powerful auras. The black-clothed girl who had attacked them before was just one of them. Be careful. They are the second elder and third elder of the clan's ground, and 11 kings. His Royal Highness Shui Yanji's expression changed greatly. He immediately transmitted over. Second elder and third elder? Dongbo Shui Ying, insect ancestor, and sword master felt their hearts tightening. Because the team of natives was sincere in cooperating with them. They had long told them that the most terrifying existences in this sky-floating island were the Emperor and the 3 elders under him. The Grand Elder was the strongest, followed by the Second Elder and Third Elder. The remaining ones were the kings. Brother Bewitching Sword, Big Brother Feishue. Other than that Emperor and Grand Elder, the apex experts of the Death Disaster clan on this sky-floating island have practically come out in full force. Insect ancestor transmitted over, our movements are considered fast. We are currently rushing towards the clan's ground together with the natives. We aren't delayed by the dangerous environment at all. But we are still intercepted. We have yet to obtain any treasures after arriving at the sky-floating island. The treasures within the Broken Teeth Mountain range aren't that easy to obtain. Dongbo Shui Ying transmitted over. Let's fight according to the plan. Sword Master transmitted over. They had never felt that they could defeat the Death Disaster clan head-on. The moment the Death Disaster clan went all out, it was impossible to stop them. They could only try their best to survive and see if they could obtain any treasures. The treasures were usually located at the core region of the sky-floating island. Fortunately, Dongbo Shui Ying was inwardly rejoicing. The gap of a single level would usually be so huge that it was ridiculous. Like Dongbo Shui Ying himself, even though every avatar was at the final realm, 9 avatars working together with the Void Fire Lotus Flower. There was still a gap between them and unparalleled existences. If that emperor were to descend, he would be much more terrifying than the 2 elders and 11 kings in front of him. Blood Flame Ji suddenly waved his hand. The 3 companions by his side were immediately kept. At the same time, another 4 companions appeared. The newly appeared clansmen were clearly much stronger. The 2 elders have already killed their way over. If they could not stop us, the Grand Elder would most likely appear. This time, we are using all the strength of the Blood Flame clan. We can only succeed. His Royal Highness Shui Yanji transmitted over, we are the only remaining experts of the Blood Flame clan. If we get the Ying Spirit Fruit, we might be able to take back our hometown. Otherwise, our clan will end up like the other worlds in the Broken Teeth Mountain range in the past, annihilated. Even if we have to risk our lives, we must get the Ying Spirit Fruit. Let's do it. The eyes of these clansmen were burning with a fanatical fighting spirit. Dongbo Shui Ying, insect ancestor, and sword master were slightly startled. His Royal Highness Shui Yanji kept the 3 weaker companions and released 4 stronger ones? Clearly, His Royal Highness Shui Yanji had brought along an Eden treasure with him. There should be quite a number of clansmen within the Eden treasure. From the aura of these clansmen, they were all powerful. Practically all of them had the strength of a final realm expert. This made them sigh with emotion. The native forces of the Broken Teeth world were indeed strong enough. There were so many High Lords at once, but they didn't know that these were all the remaining top powerhouses of one of the worlds that had fled. Saying it was slow. In reality, the moment the Death Disaster clan appeared, the natives immediately switched out their members. The battle immediately erupted. Ho! Second Elder's figure turned illusory. He turned into an incomparably huge green fog giant. This giant was towering, and his toenails were bigger than the surrounding trees. He lowered his head and let out a roar, causing an unseen ripple to envelop Sword Master. As for Third Elder, he roared as he charged over. His entire body was covered in black scales. His tail and claws were all terrifying weapons. He waved his hand. His arm was like a blade that tore through the void. A black ray of light cut toward Sword Master. Sword Master stood in midair. He wielded his sword and waved it out. The entire world started revolving along with his sword. Third Elder and Second Elder seemed to be fiercer, yet they were uncontrollably affected by it. They had no choice. Their realms were too low. Even though they were powerful, they were still too crude in front of Sword Master, who had a supreme-graded secret impartation. Sword Master comprehended a supreme-graded secret impartation, and his techniques were very comprehensive. This was also one of the reasons why supreme-graded secret impartation techniques were so precious. Like supreme-graded secret treasures and final realm experts, they could only rely on the mystical techniques contained within the supreme-graded secret treasures to unleash their techniques. If they did not contain any techniques, they would not be able to unleash their techniques. But supreme-graded secret impartation imparted Tao that was much more comprehensive. They could even comprehend other things by analogy and assimilate them into their own bodies, allowing them to specialize in more techniques. Dai. The black-robed girl, King Fu Sua, was incredibly tyrannical. A single claw sent insect ancestor flying, causing his body to scatter apart. Big brother Fei Shue, this enemy is too strong. I can't fight against him. Insect ancestor transmitted. Leave it to me. After coming to the sky-floating island, this was the first time Dongbo Shui Ying fought. An enormous void flame lotus flower appeared. A total of 9 white-robed young men appeared on top of the lotus flower. This startled the black-robed girl, King Fu Su. She then sneered, "So what if there are so many of you? Die for me." Her claw abruptly turned huge. It was shrouded in endless black aura as it slapped over. The 9 white-robed young men punched out at the same time. Countless fist shadows appeared and converged into an enormous fist. That fist was imbued with surging chaotic origin energy. Following that, with a boom, that fist clashed against that enormous claw. The expression of the black-robed girl changed. She could not help but be forced back a little. That bizarre energy tunneled into her body. The weakest of the 3 cultivators? The black-robed girl, King Fu Sua, was filled with disbelief. This is the weakest? He is the second strongest amongst the invaders this time. He is even harder to deal with than that leader of the natives. Chapter 12-19. As the various parties fought on the battlefield, they were also paying attention to the overall situation. The black-robed girl King Fu Sua could fight against His Royal Highness Shui Yenji head-on. She had left the clan's ground after failing to become an elder. Her combat strength was unquestionable. This cultivator, who was deemed as a level 2 cosmos god and the weakest threat, could actually fight against King Fu Sua? This startled all parties. Let us fight as we advance towards the clan's ground. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji felt great joy when he saw that. At the same time, he transmitted to all parties. All right, let's advance towards the core ground. Sword Master was relatively relaxed. Even though he could not defeat the 2 elders, he could rely on his sword to tie down these 2 frighteningly powerful elders, preventing them from dealing against the others. His strength? The black-robed girl King Fu Sua furiously attacked. Every single move of hers was filled with a deathly aura. They were powerful, yet Dongbo Shui Ying felt relaxed against them. Because the other party was just powerful, and the profound mysteries contained in her techniques were much simpler. He could even gain the upper hand. Chaotic Origin Ocean. Dongbo Shui Ying was still casting his Chaotic Origin Ocean at the same time. Hong Long Long. At that moment, the surrounding domain came pressing down. Coupled with the world energy from the Void Fire Lotus Flower, That was the strongest technique Dongbo Shuang could unleash. It was fine if those two elders were sufficiently powerful, but the other kings from the Death Disaster clan felt themselves being suppressed by layers of restrictions. Every single movement of theirs was affected, causing their strength to plummet. Even though the chaotic origin ocean did not cover a huge area on the sky-floating island, it was sufficient to envelop the entire battlefield. It was easy for these Death Disaster clansmen to escape from the domain. But they came here to kill these invaders. Escape? How could they stop the invaders? He is weak. At this moment, including the two elders, every single king was cursing inwardly. This white-robed young cultivator made them feel uncomfortable. Like the natives, His Royal Highness Shui Yenji, his techniques were more direct. But this white-robed young man's techniques were much more unpredictable. He could still tie down the black-robed girl King Fu Suo while maintaining his domain. We can't stop these natives anymore. This domain is preventing us from unleashing our full strength. The 10 kings surrounding the natives were all anxious. This time, the natives were even stronger than what was described in the intelligence report. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji was mainly used to confuse the enemy and train his clansmen. Currently, the entire Death Disaster clan had come out. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji would naturally summon the other 4 strongest experts hidden within the clan. With these 4 experts as the core, they formed 4 great combat formations. The combat power of the 4 major battle formations and His Royal Highness Shui Yenji were much stronger than what was reported. Even so, the natives were still at a disadvantage. They could only preserve their lives and try their best to advance towards their clan's land. But now, with the appearance of the chaotic origin ocean, both parties were equally matched. The speed of the natives greatly increased. Awaken the Great Elder. The towering second elder sent a telepathic message. Wake up the Great Elder. Wake up the Great Elder. Because this place was very close to the clan's land, after 2 transmissions, it reached the ears of that King Chidu who was guarding the clan's land. King Chidu did not dare to hesitate. He immediately went to wake up the Great Elder. There were 3 smaller ponds surrounding the enormous pond. Within one of the smaller ponds, the Great Elder was currently sleeping. Great Elder, Great Elder. King Chidu immediately called out. His voice was continuously transmitted into the body of the Great Elder. The Great Elder gradually opened his eyes. Following that, his body dissipated like fog before condensing before King Chidu. The Great Elder stared at King Chidu. His eyes were cold. Great Elder. King Chidu hurriedly explained the intelligence report. The situation of the enemy is like this. Second Elder and Third Elder have led 11 kings including King Fu Suo to intercept them. But now that they asked me to wake you, Great Elder, I'm afraid some unforeseen events might have occurred. I wonder if I should wake the Emperor? No need. If the enemy is too strong, they wouldn't have instructed you to wake me. Before the final moment, you must not wake the Emperor. Otherwise, the Emperor would be infuriated. Yes, I understand. King Chidu hurriedly replied. The Great Elder glanced at King Chidu coldly. After which, he dissipated like fog and vanished. Only then did King Chidu heave a sigh of relief. Great Elder. If Second Elder and Third Elder were still at the king rank, they were only at the peak of the king rank. But the Great Elder had already broken through the king rank and reached an even higher level. The strength of the Great Elder was most likely even more terrifying than the 10 kings added together. The natives and the 10 kings were evenly matched. As they fought, they rushed towards the clan's land. They were already near the clan's land. Soon, we will be there soon. The natives were all incomparably excited. This time, they were fighting with their lives on the line. If they failed, the chances of them making a comeback would be extremely low. The entire Blood Flame clan would most likely be wiped out. Fortunately, when they were training their clansmen, they actually met a team of cultivators. The strength of this team of cultivators was sufficiently strong. South Sword Master, Dongbo Shuing, and Insect Ancestor had an even easier time. Sword Master was too powerful. His techniques were incredibly profound. With a single sword, he could defend against the two great elders. Furthermore, he would occasionally send 1 or 2 sword strikes towards that King Fu Suo. This made King Fu Suo feel sullen. After all, it was already hard to deal with the white-robed young man who rode on the scarlet fire lotus. Now, she had to face the sneak attack of an even stronger unparalleled existence who used a sword. Suddenly, a cold snort sounded. The temperature of the world plummeted. A layer of frost covered the ground. Dongbu Shuiying and the others felt their hearts trembling. A cold, deathly aura had already invaded their bodies. A figure appeared in midair. It was a black-robed old man who stood with his hands behind his back. His hair was disheveled. He stared coldly at the group of cultivators. Abruptly, he opened his mouth and spurted out black clouds. The world underwent a huge transformation. They directly fell into a world of darkness. Dongbu Shuiying's chaotic origin ocean had begun shattering under the endless darkness. Split. Since the start of the battle, this was the first time Sword Master went all out. A dazzling sword light tore out a crack in this world of darkness. Following that, the world of darkness finally dissipated. At the moment when the darkness dissipated, many black fog ropes appeared behind the darkness. They were madly wrapping around Sword Master. "I'll hold him back." Sword Master could feel the pressure. He had a feeling of facing Emperor Summer or Undying Underworld Emperor. Fortunately, even though this Grand Elder's techniques were terrifying, they were too crude. Hence, Sword Master could still barely hold him back. If it were Emperor Summer or Undying Underworld Emperor, they would be strong enough and would have the upper hand in terms of profoundness. By then, Sword Master could not even hold him back. Facing against the Grand Elder, Sword Master could only hold him back. Grand Elder is so strong? Insect Ancestor was greatly startled. Second Elder, Third Elder, and the other 11 kings were in great joy. At the same time, they were filled with confidence. Let's give up on these two cultivators. Let's work together to kill the natives first before dealing with them. Second Elder and Third Elder ordered. Yes. Second Elder, Third Elder, and the black-robed girl, King Fu Suo charged at the group of natives at the same time. They were working together with the other 10 kings. Dongbu Shuiying and Insect Ancestor were both feeling anxious. Insect Ancestor had no other choice. He was formidable in survival and had some strange techniques. But his combat strength was still weak. As for the group of natives, they were holding back a total of 10 kings. The moment they died, all the other kings would work together to deal with them. Dongbu Shuiying knew he could not survive against them. Snow Eagle, protect them. Sword Master was doing his best to hold back that Grand Elder. At the same time, he was transmitting anxiously. Big Brother Fei Xue, we can only rely on your trump card. Insect Ancestor transmitted back too. All right. There was no other way. The eyes of Dongbu Shuiying, who was standing on the void fire lotus, flashed with a cold light. Hong! A terrifying shockwave instantly enveloped the surroundings. The 2 elders and 11 kings who were attacking the natives trembled. Among them, 8 kings directly fell from midair and lost consciousness. The remaining 2 elders and the 3 kings all had looks of pain and terror on their faces. They forced themselves to remain clear-headed. Whooshing, whooshing, whooshing. That bit of clear-headedness allowed them to use teleportation to flee. In an instant, only that Grand Elder was left. The Grand Elder, who was initially filled with an imposing aura and tyrannical strength, revealed a look of anger. But his strength was rapidly decreasing, falling to only half of his peak strength. As for Sword Master and Insect Ancestor, they looked at Dongbu Shuiying in disbelief. The effect of his trump card was that good? It was simply a move that could sweep through all 4 directions. Chapter 12:20. Just a single move had wiped out almost all members of the Death Disaster clan. They either died or fled. The sole remaining Grand Elder was greatly weakened. His advantage against Sword Master was no longer as great. Grand Elder resisted against the incoming attacks while looking at Dongbu Shuiying furiously. If one said that Sword Master and Insect Ancestor were still mentally prepared, then the remaining apex experts from the Blood Flame clan were truly wild with joy. He actually swept them all? It's that monarch Feishue? He seems to be the weakest amongst the 3 cultivators, yet he is this strong? They were incredibly excited. This time, they were betting on the fate of the entire Blood Flame clan. If they succeeded, it was still possible for the Blood Flame clan to rise and take back their homeland. If they failed, it would be over for them. The Blood Flame clan would most likely disappear just like the other natives in history. Just now, the 2nd elder and the 3rd elder wanted to join forces with a group of kings to attack them, which made them want to make a final stand in despair. Who would have thought that things would turn around? There was light at the end of the tunnel. Hurry to the clan's ground and get the Yin spirit fruit before the Emperor of the Death Disaster clan awakens. His Royal Highness Shui Yenji transmitted excitedly. Hurry! Clan's ground. These natives were all mad. Under the lead of His Royal Highness Shui Yenji, they rushed towards the clan's ground. They were fighting for time. The moment the Emperor of the Death Disaster clan appeared, he would be much more terrifying than the Grand Elder. Snow Eagle, why is this trump card of yours so formidable? Even if Ancestor Fan were to use it, the effect might not be this strong. As Sword Master defended against the Grand Elder, he continued moving towards the clan's ground. At the same time, he transmitted over. Being able to divert his attention to converse during battle showed that Sword Master was much more relaxed now. Big Brother Feishue, this is too powerful. Even though the intelligence said that the Death Disaster clan is slightly weaker in terms of soul and willpower, this is too exaggerated. But aren't you being too ridiculous? Insect Ancestor found it hard to believe. I gave it my all just now. Dongbu Shui Ying sent a voice transmission with a smile. The 8 kings who had lost their consciousness and had their souls destroyed had all turned into mist and dissipated. Only their weapons and other items were left behind, such as the sinister blood-red claws and the ordinary-looking wooden stick. Dongbu Shui Ying casually kept these items. The Death Destruction clan was a clan with low intelligence. 99% of the tribe were like wild beasts, and they only had the judgment of edible or inedible when they looked at outsiders. Only the top experts of the tribe had decent intelligence, but they still killed all outsiders. It was difficult for them to work together. For the natives, they could still work together and even trade or barter. But the Death Destruction clan? Even within the Death Destruction clan, 99% of them were like wild beasts that devoured each other. Their residences were also very simple and crude, and their weapons were also very crude. However, their weapons were usually made of extraordinary materials. They were either born on their own or were special materials on the floating island. Even though the intelligence of the Death Destruction clan is low, according to legends, they are a clan born from the corpses of powerful chaotic origin life forms. They are unique life forms, and even if their intelligence and heart realm are low, their soul would still have a strong resistance towards the external world. Dongbu Shui Ying understood this point. According to the intelligence gathered by the cultivators in Realm Heart Great Land after exploring the Broken Teeth Mountain Range, even though the souls of the Death Destruction clan were unique, their intelligence and heart realm were too low. In terms of resisting against soul techniques, they could not compare to the cultivators who climbed up step by step from being weak. Even the natives who had a stronger resistance against soul techniques might be slightly better than the Death Destruction clan, but they could not compare to the cultivators. Cultivators were the strongest in terms of heart realm. Soul techniques are usually very effective. But there are so few who have reached the level 2 Cosmos God realm in soul techniques across the entire Realm Heart Great Land. Dongbu Shui Ying sighed inwardly, the majority do not even have avatars. They do not dare to gamble with their lives. And soul-related secret treasures that have reached the level 2 Cosmos God realm are extremely rare. To control it, one has to reach the level 1 Cosmos God realm in the Tao of Soul. Furthermore, the moment one loses his avatar, the secret treasure would be lost too. Dongbu Shui Ying said. Even though everyone in Realm Heart Great Land knew that soul techniques were effective against the Death Destruction clan, it was hard to use it on a large scale. Techniques at the Level 2 Cosmos God Realm were usually effective against kings from the Death Destruction clan. Against emperors, it could be neglected. No matter what, this was a large-scale group technique, and also the killing trump card of Dongbo Shui Ying and the others in this operation. They would rely on Dongbo Shui Ying to deal with the strongest expert and sword master. What realm has Snow Eagle reached in his Tao of Mirage and Illusory realm? Sword master could not help but think. He only knew. Dongbo Shui Ying relied on his Tao of Mirage and Illusory realm scripture to trade with the Summer Wind ancient nation, obtaining the Void Fire Lotus Flower, 50,000 kilograms of chaotic origin sand, and other materials. But he did not know that currently, Dongbo Shui Ying had fused 4 branches in the Tao of Mirage and Illusory realm. He was currently fusing the 5th branch. Furthermore, as he saved the people enslaved by Sacred Master, he gained a deeper understanding of the direction of the Tao of Soul. In the Tao of Soul, much less in Realm Heart Great Land, even across the many origin worlds, Dongbo Shui Ying stood at the apex. He was unquestionably the #1 expert in the Tao of Soul in Realm Heart Great Land. Secret treasures like the Devil Emperor Gown merely fused 2 branches. Yet Dongbo Shui Ying had begun fusing all 5 branches. When he unleashed his full power, the effect was naturally the most heaven-defying in the history of Realm Heart Great Land. Don't be happy too early. Dongbo Shui Ying transmitted, the moment I use this killing trump card, it will definitely shock the Death Destruction clan. They will most likely awaken their emperor. Even this great elder was able to maintain 50% of his strength under my soul technique. As for that emperor, my influence on him is likely even lower. Hence, we have to hurry. Hurry, hurry, hurry. I really do not wish to meet that emperor. Sword Master was dealing with the Grand Elder as he rushed towards the clan's ground. Dongbo Shui Ying and Insect Ancestor were even faster. Emperors. Every sky-floating island had an emperor. They were the most terrifying existences in the entire sky-floating island, and they monopolized the best resources within the Death Destruction clan. Usually, they would cultivate in deep sleep. According to the intelligence provided by Sword Master to Dongbo Shui Ying and the others, the Death Destruction clan would usually cultivate in deep sleep. Devouring was a form of cultivation. Absorbing resources while sleeping was also a form of cultivation. In the sky-floating island, one should never think of defeating an emperor's head-on. If they had the strength of Undying Underworld Emperor or Emperor Summer, they might be able to wrestle with the other party. But Dongbo Shui Ying and the others only wanted to bring the treasures out of the sky-floating island. Damn. There is actually such a powerful cultivator. Emperor. Awaken the Emperor. Hurry up and awaken the Emperor. In the clan's ground, 2nd Elder, 3rd Elder, and the 3 extremely powerful kings who teleported back included King Fu Sua. The black-robed girl's King Fu Sua was considered the weakest amongst them. Only with their strength could they barely maintain a strand of consciousness under the soul technique of Dongbo Shui Ying. They had merely executed their fleeing techniques. They were all shocked, furious, and panicking. Awaken the Emperor. Only the Emperor could deal with the enemy. Awaken the Emperor? King Chi-Du, who was in the Elder Hall, looked at 2nd Elder, 3rd Elder, and the others with astonishment. Hurry! 2nd Elder, 3rd Elder, and the others even took the initiative to rush towards where the Emperor was sleeping. What happened? As King Chi-Du followed behind 2nd Elder and the others, he asked the other 3 kings at the same time. Dead kings, we are the only ones who survived. The other kings are all dead. A 4-hooved silver-gray mutated beast let out a deep voice. What? The other kings are all dead? King Chi-Du was startled. His strength could only be considered ordinary amongst the group of kings. If he went, he would most likely die. King Chi-Du felt a lingering fear and astonishment. What exactly happened? How could this be? Even if that unparalleled expert who used a sword could not be defeated by the kings, it should be possible for them to survive, right? King Chidu anxiously asked. They had long known how formidable Sword Master was, and the kings should be prepared against him. Furthermore, even the Grand Elder had gone out to deal with him. It's that level 2 Cosmos God cultivator who is said to be the weakest cultivator. He is the most terrifying one. Terrifying. The moment the surviving kings thought of the descent of the mirage and illusory realm, all sorts of temptations and desires that dragged their souls into that mirage and illusory realm, they felt terror. They merely maintained a strand of consciousness. If they stayed for a longer period of time, they might not be able to resist and fall. Even if they maintained a strand of consciousness, the strength they could unleash was pitifully weak. Hong, second elder and third elder, brought the other 4 kings over to that enormous pool. The pool was filled with a deep green liquid. There was an enormous pitch-black body lying within the pool. Because it was too big, the surface of its body was exposed to the surface of the pool. It was in deep sleep, yet it did not fluctuate at all. It was as if it was a dead object. Cultivators and natives couldn't sense anything special about this sleeping emperor. But being from the Death Destruction clan, the elders and kings could sense how terrifying the energy hidden within the body of the emperor lying there was. If they could eat the emperor, they might even transform. It's just that with their strength, they could not bite through the skin of the emperor. Emperor. Second elder and third elder respectfully lowered their heads. They called out to their emperor. Chapter 12:21. And on the other side, the team of natives and Dongbo Shui-Ying had already rushed into the clan's ground one after another. Even though there were unseen ripples obstructing them, it was very weak. Cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land. Grand Elder was incomparably furious. He had never encountered such an unbearable illusory realm impact. Those bewildering desires were constantly pulling at his soul. He had already broken through that step and reached the Emperor realm. But he still had to divert a lot of his heart force to resist against it. Hence, the power of his techniques was greatly reduced. His techniques were crude to begin with. Once their power was greatly reduced, the suppression on Sword Master became much weaker. Sword Master was able to easily escape. Boo! After breaking through the ripples, the tallest mountain in the clan's ground was right ahead. Dongbo Shui-Ying looked at the distant mountain. With a thought, so, many white-robed young men began flying in different directions. He had a total of more than 10,000 avatars. This time, he came to the Broken Teeth Mountain range with 9 avatars. The other avatars were much weaker. They barely had the strength of ordinary cosmos gods. But it was sufficient for him to search for treasures. Dongbo Shui-Ying casually released several hundred avatars. Insect Ancestor was even guffawing. His black robe transformed into many insects that flew in all directions. He too went searching for treasures. Damn. Grand Elder was furious. It had always been their Death Destruction clan devouring experts from other clans. Since when did others rush into the clan's ground to snatch treasures? It's a pity. The most elite Death Destruction clansmen in the clan's ground had all retreated. Because they knew that facing the terrifying soul technique of that cultivator from Realm Heart Great Land, even kings could not resist against it. Those who were weaker would simply be sending themselves to death. Broken Teeth Mountain Range was created by Yuan. It was also a training ground left behind by Yuan for the cultivators. There were dangers and treasures here, but there were too many sky-floating islands. A single sky-floating island would ultimately have limited treasures. Furthermore, some were treated as treasures by the higher-ups of the Death Destruction clan and were hidden away. Only those whom the Death Destruction clan disliked or disdained would be thrown outside. The Death Destruction clan was ultimately a different life form from cultivators. Some treasures that were extremely precious to cultivators were useless to the Death Disaster clan. Instead, it was the natives and the Death Destruction clans who valued treasures more or less the same. Dongbo Shui-Ying's clones flew in different directions to investigate the situation. What's that? One of the doppelgangers discovered that there was a stream of water flowing down from the high mountains of the clan grounds. Below the water flow, there were many strange stones. These stones were all pitch black and had a luster to them. If one looked closely, they would see that there were layers upon layers of patterns on the surface of the black stones. The patterns looked like scales, and they were very beautiful. Mysterious scale stone? Donghua Shui-ing recognized it immediately and flew over. With a wave of his hand, this clone controlled the void and grabbed the Xianling rocks. Mysterious scale stone was extremely precious and indestructible. Even unmatched existences couldn't directly destroy it. It could only be used when refining weapons with many supplementary materials. It was a precious material for refining secret treasures. So many Xianling stones? 625? Donghua Shui-ing was overjoyed. The value of so many Xianling stones was so high that it could match a top-graded secret treasure. This is indeed the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. This single discovery is comparable to a top-graded secret treasure. Donghua Shui-ing was incredibly happy. But in reality, how many cultivators from Realm Heart Great Land could kill their way into the core clan's ground of the sky-floating islands? Even if they did enter the clan's ground, how many could have so many avatars like him? Before entering, Donghua Shui-ing, Sword Master, and Insect Ancestor had discussed that the treasures obtained in the Broken Teeth Mountain Range would be distributed according to contribution points. Of course, whoever needed it the most could take it away, though they had to compensate the other two parties. After all, Donghua Shui-ing specialized in group attacks with his soul technique. Sword Master was the strongest, and Insect Ancestor was responsible for searching for treasures. His insects were the best at searching for treasures. Nothing else. Donghua Shui-ing sent several hundred avatars searching. Other than discovering the mysterious scale stone, he did not discover any other treasures. Suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted in the distance. Donghua Shui-ing, Insect Ancestor, and Sword Master immediately noticed it. That was a location deep within the mountain. That was also where the natives killed their way in. Donghua Shui-ing also had an avatar that was very close to them. That eruption of aura was too horrifying. It was so grand that it caused the expressions of Donghua Shui-ing, Sword Master, and Insect Ancestor to change. Above the mountain in the clan's ground, a black fog that was emitting an aura of death started condensing. Blood Flame Clan? Here to steal my Yin spirit fruit again? A grand voice resounded. This voice caused the entire world to tremble. It's the Emperor. He has awakened. Let us hurry up and leave. Sword Master, Insect Ancestor, and Donghua Shui-ing immediately knew that something was amiss. Hurry up and leave. My insects have discovered treasures in 4 locations. What about you guys? Countless insects flew towards Insect Ancestor from afar. They gathered into a black robe and wrapped around Insect Ancestor's body. I've discovered one. Donghua Shui-ing replied. One after another, his avatars flew over. Hurry, the natives are currently restraining them. In a moment, that emperor will come to deal with us. Sword Master said worriedly. Emperor Feishue, please help my Blood Flame Clan. My Blood Flame Clan will definitely reward you handsomely. An anxious voice transmitted into Donghua Shui-ing's ears. I'll leave a few avatars here to help them. Donghua Shui-ing immediately transmitted to Sword Master. He had many avatars. Of the few avatars he left behind, there was only one with true combat strength. The others were weaker and were mainly used to confuse enemies when they encountered danger. All right. Sword Master waved his hand and kept Insect Ancestor and Donghua Shui-ing into his Eden treasure. Within this Eden treasure, Donghua Shui-ing's consciousness was not obstructed from permeating the outside world. He could still execute his mirage and illusory realm techniques. Go! After keeping his companions without any worries, Sword Master immediately fled with all his might. So, his speed soared to the extreme. His harvest from this sky-floating island was already sufficient. One must know that it would still be a long period of time before he could escape. Sword Master had no confidence in escaping from the hands of the Emperor. Hence, he had to leave as soon as possible. If he died, it was one thing to lose his avatars. But all his treasures would be lost. They came to Broken Teeth Mountain Range. Firstly, it was to temper themselves. Secondly, it was to collect treasures. Some treasures were helpful to cultivation. This Grand Elder chased relentlessly from behind. He was clear that the moment he was shaken off, with the opponent's ability to conceal his aura, it would take a long time for him to discover them again. He had to follow them. When the Emperor arrives, it would be time for these invaders to pay the price. On the other side, Elder's Hall. One of Dongwu Shui Ying's super strong avatars had already arrived. With a glance, he saw the situation in the Elder's Hall. On the side of the natives, a strange blood-colored crystal appeared on His Royal Highness Shui Yenji's forehead. His strength had increased by multiple folds, reaching the invincible realm. The clansmen behind him formed a battle formation. A drop of blood-colored liquid appeared on the forehead of each of them. Their aura had also increased by multiple folds. But the enemy was very strong. Second Elder, Third Elder, each of them had the combat strength of an invincible realm expert. King Fu Suo and the other kings were also very strong. More importantly, the one currently suppressing His Royal Highness Shui Yenji was a pitch-black giant. His entire body was pitch black and he had 3 eyes. His pair of huge arms carried a mysterious feeling when he waved them, causing His Royal Highness Shui Yenji to spit out blood time and time again. Fortunately, His Royal Highness Shui Yenji was a native, and his fleshly body was extremely strong. Risking your life? Burning the power of your bloodline? It's useless. This pitch-black giant once again slapped His Royal Highness Shui Yenji into the ground. Blood Flame Ji's heavily injured fleshly body twisted and recovered. As he battled, he charged towards a strangely curved fruit tree at the side. He is risking his life to charge towards that strange fruit tree? Dongwu Shuiying did not care about anything else. He first unleashed his illusory realm technique with all his strength. Boom! The illusory realm descended and enveloped the entire Elder Hall. The expressions of Second Elder, Third Elder, and other kings within the Elder Hall changed greatly. They immediately teleported away. As for King Chidu, he had already fled far away after knowing that the enemy had killed his way into the clan's ground. He was clear that he would lose his life in a single move against that terrifying cultivator from Realm Heart Great Land. The other Death Destruction clansmen had all fled. But the Emperor remained unmoved. This pitch-black giant turned towards that white-robed young man who appeared outside the Elder Hall. Under the terrifying illusory realm, even the Emperor had to divert some of his heart force to resist against it, causing his strength to drop by 30%. Even though he was powerful and stronger than the Grand Elder, in reality he and the Grand Elder were both emperors. The soul strength of the Grand Elder was fundamentally different from Second Elder and others. But there was no fundamental difference between the Emperor and the Grand Elder. Hurry! When His Royal Highness Shui Yenji saw that, he immediately transmitted to his subordinates, "Snatch the Yin Spirit Fruit." Yin Spirit Fruit. Those clansmen from the Blood Flame clan madly rushed over. Dongwu Shuiying was also observing that peculiar fruit tree. This fruit tree grew in a pond, and the liquid within was pitch black. And this fruit tree was crooked, and it was about 30 meters tall. The skin of the 2 fruits was very thin, and one could see light revolving within. This fruit seems extraordinary, but there are no records of it in the intelligence report. Dongwu Shuiying suddenly noticed a gray eye at the top of this peculiar fruit tree. This gray eye seemed to be embedded within the fruit tree. The pressure it emitted was also constantly enveloping the entire Elder Hall. It's just that the aura of the Emperor was much stronger at this moment. Dongwu Shuiying did not notice this gray eye previously. When he looked over, Dongwu Shuiying's eyes met with that gray eye. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.